Chapter 1919. If you dare touch a hair on them, I'll drag a few of you down with me, even if I have to die. The human demon's face was extremely gloomy. He clenched his fists and fought against the suction from the cauldron. Rumble. The moment they clashed, the human demon was at a disadvantage. After all, the human demon was only a mid-earth immortal. Moreover, he was fighting against the suction from the cauldron while fighting against the old man and the others. Under such circumstances, it was already very good that the human demon wasn't killed in a short period of time. Why didn't the suction from the cauldron attack the old man and the others? Wu Patian frowned in confusion when he saw the human demon in such a difficult situation. That was because the suction force from the five-fingered cauldron was only attacking them, not the hook-nosed elder and the others. Is there a limit to the suction from the cauldron? Since Wu Patian noticed this, Ningyu naturally noticed it as well. With a thought, Ningyu shifted his gaze to the cauldron. He felt that something was amiss. At this time, the cauldron was shaking under the attacks of the other two late-earth immortal experts. Moreover, Ningyu noticed that the cauldron was only passively defending. It didn't have the slightest initiative. Pucci. While Ningyu was still puzzled, the outcome of the battle had already been decided. Under the combined attacks of the old man and the bald man, the human demon finally couldn't hold on any longer and was sent flying. Ha ha ha! I didn't expect the formidable human demon to die in my hands. Just thinking about it makes me a little excited. The hook-nosed old man punched the human devil in the chest, sending him flying. At the same time, the old man threw his head back and laughed maniacally before chasing after the human demon. Indeed, the human demon had killed a heavenly immortal before. If he killed the human demon now, he would have the right to brag about it. Wung wung wung. However, before the old man could catch up to the human demon, the cauldron on the other side shot out another terrifying suction. Compared to the previous suction force, this terrifying suction force was many times stronger. Not good. Sensing this terrifying suction force, Ning Yu's expression changed drastically. He could sense that the target of the suction force was not the hook-nosed old man and the others, but him, Ning Lu, and the others. Damn it! Ning Yu was about to cry. When it rains, it pours. Originally, it was very difficult for them to resist the attacks of the hook-nosed old man. Now that they were being attacked by the 5 pill furnaces, they were instantly at an absolute disadvantage. The heavens are helping me. The sudden change clearly caused the hook-nosed elder to be a little stunned. But soon, the hook-nosed old man was pleasantly surprised. Just now he thought that the 5-finger pill furnace would attack him. Who would have thought that it was a false alarm? Originally, he had the upper hand in his battle with the human devil. Now, with the help of the 5-finger pill furnace, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. Today is the day you die. The aquiline-nosed old man was in high spirits. He was very awe-inspiring. But what happened next made the hook-nosed old man feel like he ate shit. The suction force that shot out from the 5-finger pill furnace this time seemed to be a little different. The suction force from before had horrifying destructive power and could suck people dry. But the suction force this time was just pure suction force, which was to say that the suction force this time was not threatening at all. If it was just the suction force without any threat, the hook-nosed old man would not have this kind of expression. The most crucial thing was that the suction force actually wrapped Ningyu and the human devil and the rest, sucking them into the 5-finger pill furnace right in front of him. Swoosh! Furthermore, after the 5-finger pill furnace sucked Ningyu and the rest into its body, it immediately tore through the void and tunneled inside. Hurry up and stop it! The hook-nosed old man's expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly roared. At this time, the hook-nosed old man's expression was very ugly. To him, the human devil's escape was like a cooked duck flying. Just as he was about to kill the human devil, he did not expect this kind of thing to happen. The hook-nosed old man clenched both hands into fists. All of the energy in his body gathered on his wrists. With a backhand, he punched out twice. Boom! 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 Apart from the hook-nosed old man, the other 3 martial artists, including the bald man, also punched out. Several fist auras gathered together and suddenly blasted into the void where the 5-finger pill furnace was escaping. Whoosh! In the void, inside the 5-finger pill furnace, everyone looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The 5-finger pill furnace helped them? This result was indeed out of their expectations. Gulp. Swallowing hard, Ning Lu was the first to speak. This is the inside of the 5-finger pill furnace. Ningyu, you are an alchemist, and your soul power has reached the monarch stage. How do you think we should leave? After Ningyu had devoured Gong Yangqing's soul power, the strength of his soul had broken through the limit and reached a height he had not reached in his previous life. In the entire 5-finger pill furnace, Ningyu's soul power was the strongest. Therefore, apart from Ning Lu, everyone else looked at Ningyu. There's no way for now. Under everyone's gaze, Ningyu shook his head and said in a low voice, "This 5-finger pill furnace is the path to immortality. With the strength of my soul power, there's no way I can control it. Are we just going to sit here and wait for death?" Wu Patian asked. The 5 Fingers Cauldron belongs to the 5 Fingers Immortal, and the 5 Fingers Immortal is a Heaven Immortal expert. Unless we advance to the Heaven Immortal realm, we won't be able to leave. Ning Yu took a deep breath and said, "Whoosh!" Ning Yu's words spread in everyone's minds like a plague. What was the difference between being trapped in the 5-finger pill furnace and being unable to leave? Although the space inside the 5-finger pill furnace was relatively large, no one would be able to stand being trapped for a long time. If I'm not wrong, the 5-finger pill furnace's destination should be the Myriad Demon's Ridge. The human demon, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke up. The transportation formation under Four Corner City is actually the 5-finger pill furnace. Will the 5-finger pill furnace let us out when we reach the Myriad Demon's Ridge? Wu Patian asked doubtfully. I'm not sure if it will let us out, but there's one thing I'm sure of. The human demon's expression turned solemn. The 5-finger Immortal's disciples should be waiting for us in the Myriad Demon's Ridge. What the F***CK? Wu Patian and the others immediately cursed. According to Mo Chinya, the 5-finger Immortal had a total of 5 disciples. The weakest disciple was a mid-stage Earth Immortal, and the strongest disciple was infinitely close to becoming a Sky Immortal. If all 5 of the 5-finger pill furnace's disciples were here, it would be much more formidable than the hook-nosed old man's group. No matter how fast the 5-finger pill furnace is, it will still take a long time to reach the Myriad Demon's Ridge from Four Corner City. Chapter 1920. The deepest part of the 5 Fingers Cauldron. Hearing the human demon's words, Wu Patian and the others looked around with doubtful expressions. They could see the entire space of the 5 Fingers Cauldron with a single glance. Although it was slightly bigger than an ordinary cauldron, it was only slightly bigger. They could reach the deepest part of the cauldron with a single leap. Now that the human demon said that he wanted to enter the deepest part of the 5 Fingers Cauldron with Ningyu and the others, how could Wu Patian and the others not be shocked? Whoosh, 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 whoosh. However, Ningyu and the others did not care whether Wu Patian and the others were shocked or not. The 4 of them immediately leapt into the air and charged toward the interior of the 5 Fingers Cauldron at a terrifying speed. The 5 Fingers Cauldron was ranked on the immortal ranking of cauldrons. Thus the space inside it would not be so small. The reason why Wu Patian and the others thought the 5 Fingers Cauldron was because their cultivation was too weak to see through the barrier left behind by the 5 Fingers Celestial. The 5 Fingers Celestial was a heaven immortal. How could anyone see through the barrier he left behind? If it weren't for the fact that the barrier had been set up for a long time, causing cracks to appear on it, Ningyu and the others would not have discovered it. Crack! Under the astonished gazes of Wu Patian and the others, Ningyu and the others rammed into an invisible barrier, causing a gap to appear on the barrier. Wu Patian and the others forcefully entered the barrier. Buzz, buzz! As soon as Ningyu and the others entered the barrier healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. It did not take long for the barrier to heal completely. Gasp! This situation caused Wu Patian and the rest to suck in a cold breath of air. At this moment, they felt a little fortunate that Ningyu and the demonic humans were the ones who entered the cauldron. Otherwise, they would definitely be trapped here with just 2 celestial spirit stage natives. Now that Ningyu and the others had broken through the barrier and entered the deeper part of the Five Fingers Cauldron, they finally had a chance to survive. Watch out! At the same time, Ningyu and the human demon who had just broken through the barrier encountered a huge problem. Originally, after they broke through the barrier, their speed was not considered too fast. Almost every step they took, they would stop to observe their surroundings. However, just 5 seconds later, Ningyu and the others ran into big trouble. A giant puppet suddenly appeared in front of them. This puppet was 3 to 4 times the size of a normal person, and the aura it emitted was terrifying. Mid-Earth Immortal Stage, Ningyu and the rest knew very well how difficult it was to deal with an intermediate earthly immortal puppet. Under the same circumstances, with the combination of Ningyu and the other 3, with the human devil taking the vanguard and the other 3 suppressing the rear, they could easily kill an intermediate Earth Immortal expert. After all, the human demon was a mid-Earth Immortal. But now that he was facing a mid-Earthly Immortal Stage puppet, the situation was completely different. There were 2 ways to deal with puppets. The first was to find its control center and make it his own. Second, use a powerful force to blast it into pieces. These 2 methods were obviously not practical for Ningyu and the rest. Their goal was to explore and find a way to break through the Five Fingers Cauldron, not to fight an intermediate Earth Immortal puppet. I'll hold this puppet back. You guys continue forward. Looking at the puppet that was emitting a terrifying aura, Hong Mo took a deep breath and said, "Since the Five-Fingered Immortal left a puppet here to watch over the cauldron, it means that there must be some sort of secret deep within the cauldron. We cannot afford to waste any more time here. Otherwise, the moment the Five-Fingered Immortal leaves, the Five-Fingered Pill Cauldron will be destroyed. Otherwise, if the Five Fingers Cauldron flies to the Myriad Demon Ridge, we'll all die. I'll stay. You're not a match for the puppet. This puppet might be difficult to deal with, but I have a way to trap it." Human Demon took a step forward and said, "All right, Senior Human Demon will stay. The 3 of us will continue forward." Ningyu was not an indecisive person. Although Hong Mo had advanced to the Great Circle Sage stage and his overall strength could fight against an early human immortal, the puppet in front of him was a mid-Earth immortal. Among the 4 of them, only Human Demon could stay and fight the puppet head-on. Swoosh! Seeing Ningyu's decisiveness, Human Demon nodded his head in relief. He leaped up and started fighting with the giant puppet. "Let's go." Seeing that Human Demon was holding back the giant puppet, Ningyu moved without hesitation and continued to rush into the depths of the Five Fingers Cauldron. Swoosh! Swoosh! Hong Mo and Ning Lu followed closely behind Ningyu, forming a triangle with Ningyu. What puzzled Ningyu was that he did not encounter any danger in the next half an hour after he left the giant puppet. Moreover, as they went deeper into the cauldron, the density of the surrounding essence chi became more and more terrifying. In the end, Ningyu felt like he was immersed in an ocean of essence chi. If I cultivate here, it won't take long for me to advance to the Great Circle Sage stage. Ningyu's face became extremely solemn. Right now, his cultivation was at the peak of the Sage realm. Although his overall strength was comparable to a human immortal intermediate stage martial artist, with the weakening of the plane barrier, The enemies that they were going to face next were basically from a higher plane and were extremely powerful. Under such circumstances, he urgently needed to improve his strength. He could feel that as long as he improved his cultivation to the great Circle Sage stage, his strength would increase exponentially. Let's go! Ningyu took a deep breath and exhaled. Then he stomped his feet on the ground and dashed forward again. Ningyu knew better than anyone that Human Demon was fighting against a giant puppet, and the safety of the Dark Emperor and Lu Wei depended on him. At other times he might stay and cultivate, but now was a critical time. He could only continue to go deeper into the Five Fingers Cauldron and look for opportunities to leave it. Swoosh! 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 Since Ning Yu had left, Hong Emo and Ning Lu naturally would not stay behind. They continued to move forward. Swoosh! However, they had only taken a few steps when they stopped in unison. Hiss! Looking at the scene in front of them, even though Ning Yu and Ning Lu had seen a lot, they could not help but gasp. Terrifying! Extremely terrifying! Extremely, extremely terrifying! It would not be an exaggeration to describe the scene in front of them as purgatory on earth. The entire area was filled with eerie white bones. Above the pile of bones was a circular altar. On the altar, there was a golden box that was emitting 5-colored light. What a powerful medicinal effect! Although the golden box was very sealed, the terrifying medicinal effect that was emitted from the golden box could not be hidden from Ningyu and the others. The elixirs inside are at least peak royal level. Ningyu's pupils constricted as he said in a deep voice. Above the royal level elixirs were sacred level elixirs. Ningyu's current soul strength was at grade 1 royal level. Strictly speaking, he could only refine royal level elixirs. To refine royal level elixirs, he had to be at least a grade 10 royal level alchemist or a sacred level alchemist. Chapter 1921. At this thought, Ning Yu's expression became extremely solemn. Although he wasn't someone from a higher plane, and his cultivation was only at the heavenly supreme realm in his previous life, he had devoured many experts from the higher planes. From their memories, he understood some information about the higher planes. A heaven immortal from a high-level cultivation plane was an overlord who could dominate a large territory and summon clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. Even such a terrifying celestial immortal had to greet a true saint-grade pill refiner with the utmost respect. It could be said that in a high-level cultivation plane, every sage-grade alchemist had a very respectable status. He was not a heaven immortal, but he surpassed one. How could Ningyu not be shocked when the 5-fingered immortal was a sky immortal to begin with, and it was highly possible that he was a sage-grade alchemist? How could such a terrifying person not have left a backup plan in his alchemy cauldron? The more Ningyu thought about it, the more solemn his expression became. I'll go get the golden box. While Ningyu was pondering, Ning Lu's eyes turned cold, and he immediately dashed toward the golden box. Ning Yu's expression changed when he saw Ning Lu rushing out recklessly. He hurriedly shouted, "Come back!" Rumble. However, Ning Yu's shout was obviously slower by half a beat. An illusory palm print suddenly shot out from the golden box and slapped toward Ning Lu. Break! Ning Lu seemed to have guessed that this would happen. The essence chi in his body surged, and a dark golden branch containing terrifying essence chi suddenly shot out from the top of his head. Without a doubt, the dark golden branch was Ning Lu's natal branch. As the tree of the world, Ning Lu had long refined all the dark golden branches into one. Crack! When the dark golden branches came into contact with the illusory palm print was shattered on the spot. A soft sound of surprise was heard the moment the illusory palm was shattered. It was obvious that the martial artist who had made the sound was full of disbelief. No matter who you are, the fact that you can barge into this place means that you have some ability. An ethereal voice rang in the ears of Ningyu and the others. Ever since I descended into the mortal spirit realm, a total of several dozen people have been sucked into the five-finger pill cauldron. Of those people, more than half have made it here. All those who manage to barge their way here, I'll give them a huge gift. I'll use them as fertilizer to nourish my five-finger immortal pills. As the illusory voice was heard, an invisible pressure suddenly descended upon the place. Under this invisible pressure, Ningyu, the Red Devil, and the others couldn't bear it any longer. They couldn't help but want to kneel down. The pressure of an earth immortal. The terrifying pressure had surpassed the limit of a human immortal and was heading straight for an earth immortal. If the pressure was only at the level of a human immortal, Ningyu, Hong Fiend, and the others would be able to withstand it if they joined forces. But now the power was heading straight for the earth immortals. How could they stop it? Ha ha ha! Stop your pointless struggle. With your nourishment, I will be able to successfully refine the five-finger immortal pill in a few hours. A burst of wild laughter echoed in the ears of Ningyu and the others. Following this, a terrifying suction force was emitted from the golden box, which instantly wrapped around Ningyu and the others and dragged them into the golden box. Puff! As soon as they entered the golden box, Ningyu felt a little breathless due to the terrifying pressure. He even spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. Is this the five-finger immortal pill? Suppressing the pressure coming from all over his body, Ningyu stared fixedly at the illusory figure in front of him and the fist-sized pill beside the illusory figure. The pill was silvery white in color and emitted a faint red glow. It was indeed Ningyu's first time seeing a silvery white pill emitting a red glow. That's right, this is the five-finger immortal pill. The illusionary figure nodded and said, "You should be proud to be the fertilizer for the five-finger immortal pill." "You are the five-finger immortal?" Ningyu asked as his gaze landed on the illusionary figure. Yes and no. The illusionary figure nodded at first, then shook his head and said, "The three of you better stand beside the five-finger immortal pill and let it devour you. That way, you will feel less pain." Wait a minute. How shrewd was Ningyu? When they were outside, the illusionary figure's palm print was broken by Ning Lu with a single move. The reason they had entered the golden box was because the golden box had emitted a terrifying suction force. Furthermore, they were already in a life-or-death situation with the illusionary figure. Why would the illusionary figure let them go? However, the illusionary figure did not attack first. This was a little thought-provoking. Did the illusionary figure not want them to suffer? That was obviously nonsense. Therefore, there was only one possibility. The illusionary figure was not at its peak. In other words, the illusionary figure was only a clone that the five-finger immortal had left in the five-finger immortal pill cauldron. Perhaps this doppelganger was very powerful in the beginning, but as time passed, coupled with the eerie white bones on the outside, it directly caused the illusory figure's strength to drop by a huge level. Everyone attacked together. Ningyu's eyes glinted coldly as he channeled the primordial chi in his body into the red demon sword. He held the red demon sword in his hand and slashed out with it. Die! When he saw Ningyu attack, Ning Lu also took out the natal branch in his body and charged forward. As for the red demon, it turned into a red flying sword and slashed at the illusionary figure. The illusionary figure looked flustered when he saw Ningyu and the others suddenly attack. However, his expression disappeared in a flash, so no one saw it. "Since you are courting death, I shall grant your wish." The illusionary figure waved its hands repeatedly and produced several palm imprints in an instant. These palm imprints were even more terrifying than the previous ones. Some of them were even close to materializing. Crack! 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 However, Ningyu and the others were not weak either. Ningyu wielded the red demon sword and slashed apart the palm imprints on the spot. Ning Lu also activated the natal branch and went on a killing spree. The Red Demon's battle record was slightly weaker. He did not seem to be focused on destroying the palm imprints. Instead, he slowly made his way to the side of the five-finger immortal pill. Oh no! The illusionary figure was very perceptive. He noticed that something was wrong when the Red Demon approached the five-finger immortal pill. "If you dare touch my five-finger immortal pill, I will kill you," the illusionary figure roared. "You want to kill me? In your next life." Under the threat of the illusionary figure, the Red Demon slashed at the tray below the five-finger immortal pill and sent it flying. Swoosh! The five-finger immortal pill flew in the direction of Ning Yu. Ning Yu was busy blocking the palm imprints. When he felt a cold gleam flying toward him, he immediately turned around. However, when Ning Yu turned around, his mouth opened involuntarily. Chapter 1922. The five-finger immortal pill ingestion plan did not give Ning Yu any time to think before it entered his body. Moreover, the horrifying medicinal power of the five-finger divine pill instantly engulfed Ning Yu's body. Crack, crack, crack! Clear and melodious sounds came from Ning Yu's body. These voices caused Ning Yu's pupils to constrict, and he was unable to maintain his composure. His body had been tempered several times before. Qilin blood and true dragon blood tempered his body. Every time he tempered his body, a large amount of impurities would be expelled from his body. Moreover, every time he tempered his body, his physical strength would increase exponentially. Initially, he thought that he wouldn't have another chance to temper his body after being tempered by the Kirin's blood and the true dragon's blood. However, he accidentally swallowed the five-finger immortal pill, which gave him another chance to temper his body. Five-finger divine pill to temper his body. No, I can't temper my body now. Although Ning Yu wanted to temper his body immediately, he knew better than anyone that he must not temper his body before dealing with the illusory figure, because the illusory figure would definitely not sit back and do nothing. Ning Yu was right. The illusory figure was on the verge of going berserk. He had guarded the five-finger divine pill for such a long time. Just as he was about to get it, he did not expect it to be swallowed by a martial artist at the peak of the Sage Realm. How could he not be angry? Now, the illusory figure only had one thought in his mind, which was to kill Ning Yu and refine the five-finger divine pill as soon as possible before its medicinal power completely dissipated. Protect Ning Yu. However, the illusory figure wanted to kill Ning Yu. How could Ning Lu and the Red Devil let him do as he pleased for no reason? Then Ning Lu and the Red Devil rushed out and stood beside Ning Yu, one on the left and one on the right. "I will kill anyone who dares to stop me." The illusory figure was extremely furious. He raised his head and shouted, charging straight at Ning Yu. Although he would definitely be attacked by Ning Lu and the Red Fiend if he charged blindly like this, the illusory figure couldn't care less. This was because with every passing second, the medicinal effects of the five-finger immortal pill would weaken a little. Once the power of the five-finger immortal pill completely disappeared, his years of planning would be in vain. Kill! Kill! Ning Lu and the Red Fiend went all out. Everyone used their full strength. Among them, Ning Lu had used his natal branch. The Red Fiend had somehow taken the Red Fiend sword from Ning Yu's hand and fused it with the Red Fiend sword, launching a sure-kill attack. Puff! Puff! In the face of the two terrifying attacks, the illusory figure seemed to have not seen them at all and continued to rush towards Ning Yu without a care. However, as it was charging forward, the illusory figure was struck by two terrifying attacks and immediately spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. Fresh blood spurted out, and the illusory figure's aura dropped by another level. If the aura that the illusionary figure emitted previously was that of an early Earth immortal, it had now fallen to the peak of a human immortal. Moreover, as Ning Lu and the Red Fiend continued to attack, the illusory figure's aura continued to drop. Go to hell. Although the aura had dropped to the human immortal realm, the illusory figure forcefully broke through the defense of Ning Lu and the Red Fiend and descended in front of Ningyu. A cold voice came out of the illusory figure's mouth. Then, the illusory figure suddenly turned into a small five-finger immortal cauldron and slammed towards Ningyu. Puff! Under the impact of the small five-finger immortal cauldron, Ningyu spat out a mouthful of blood and his body was on the verge of collapsing. If this was before the tempering of the five-finger immortal pill, Ningyu would definitely not be able to withstand this impact. But now his physical strength had once again improved qualitatively. With just his physical strength, he could even easily kill a martial artist in the intermediate human immortal realm. With his various trump cards, he was confident that he could kill a martial artist in the peak of human immortal realm. Of course, this was all based on the current situation. Ningyu had only refined 1/10 of the power of the five-finger immortal pill. Once Ningyu completely refined all 5 of the five-finger immortal pills, to what extent would his overall strength reach? But now, Ningyu was faced with 2 choices. First, stop tempering his body with the five-finger immortal pill and increase his cultivation. In that case, he could easily increase his cultivation to the human immortal realm or even the peak of human immortal realm with the help of the five-finger immortal pill. After all, the five-finger immortal pill was a peak monarch level elixir that was infinitely close to the sage level. Every time such an elixir appeared, it would cause heaven immortals to kill each other. Second, continue tempering his body with the five-finger immortal pill. In that case, the strength of his body could be increased to an extremely terrifying level. By then, he could even compete with an early Earth immortal realm martial artist with his physical strength alone. Either of the 2 choices could increase Ningyu's overall strength by several times or even dozens of times. Tempering my body. Ningyu gritted his teeth and decided to continue tempering his body on the spot. Now that the plane barrier had loosened and the immortal spirit state had undergone a huge change, it was no longer the peak of the sage realm. It was foreseeable that after a period of time, the native martial artists of the immortal spirit state would experience a huge increase in their cultivation. Peak sage experts like Wu Patian and the divine war crane could easily break through to the sage perfected stage or the human immortal realm. After all, they had been stuck at the peak of the sage realm for too long, and the energy in their bodies had reached a terrifying level. It could be said that every peak sage expert of the immortal spirit state could instantly kill a peak sage expert from a higher plane. They just lacked a cultivation environment. I'm so angry. The illusory figure was furious when he saw that he had failed to knock Ningyu away. But as the clone of the five-finger immortal, the illusory figure knew that he had missed the best opportunity. Following that, with every passing minute, his strength would decrease a little, while the hardness of Ningyu's body would increase a little. Under such circumstances, he would never be a match for Ningyu. With Ningyu in front of him and Ning Lu and the Red Devil behind him, he had no way out. The illusory figure took a deep breath and said viciously, "Since you have swallowed my five-finger immortal pill, I will kill all your friends and let you live in endless pain forever." This was the five-finger immortal pill cauldron, and the illusory figure was the clone of the five-finger immortal pill. He could control the five-finger immortal pill cauldron perfectly. If he wanted to kill the Dark Emperor and Lu Wei, it would be very easy. How dare you! Ningyu opened his eyes and forcefully stopped the tempering of the five-finger immortal pill. The five-finger immortal pill was a little special. Once he stopped, Ningyu could only choose the second option, which was to use it to increase his cultivation. Originally, Ningyu could complete the tempering and strengthen his body by several times. He could use his body to fight against a primary stage Earth immortal martial artist. Now that he stopped the tempering, Ningyu could only use his physical strength to fight against a peak stage human immortal martial artist. If he wanted to fight or kill a primary stage Earth immortal martial artist, Ningyu only had one choice. That was to completely refine the five-finger immortal pill within 3 minutes and break through to the human immortal realm. Chapter 1923. The illusionary figure's aura continued to drop. Now it was only at the peak of the human immortal realm. Although Ningyu had only consumed a portion of the five-finger immortal pill, his physical body was already strong enough to fight against a peak human immortal realm martial artist. Clenching his right hand into a fist, Ningyu took a step forward and punched at the illusionary figure. "You're courting death." The illusionary figure was enraged. His eyes emitted a cold gleam as he charged at Ningyu. Almost instantly, Ningyu and the illusionary figure began to fight. Crack! The power of a peak human immortal realm martial artist was extremely strong. With a crisp sound, the golden box that Ningyu and the others were in suddenly cracked open. Then it completely shattered. "Let's go!" As soon as the golden box shattered, Ning Lu and the Red Devil joined the battle. Although the illusionary figure would definitely lose if the battle continued like this. However, they were inside the five-finger cauldron, and the illusionary figure was a clone of the five-finger immortal. Who knew if the five-finger immortal had a backup plan? What if the five-finger immortal's backup plan appeared just as Ningyu was about to win? Wouldn't Ningyu be doomed? The current situation was very clear. As long as the two of them joined forces, together with Ningyu's incredible physical strength, they would be able to kill the illusionary figure in less than 3 minutes. Under such circumstances, they naturally would not sit idly by. Rumble. As soon as Ning Lu and the Red Devil made their moves, the situation became one-sided. Although Ningyu had the upper hand, the illusionary figure could still struggle. But now, the illusionary figure could only struggle like a trapped beast. It was difficult for it to even struggle. Puff! The battle lasted for another 2 minutes. Finally, the illusionary figure spat out a mouthful of blood and turned into nothingness. Puff! What Ningyu and the others didn't know was that after they joined forces to kill the illusory figure, in a forest in the Myriad Demon's Ridge, an old man suddenly spat out a mouthful of dark red blood, and his body directly fell from the sky to the ground. Ka ka ka! The old man leaped up from the ground and clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were filled with malice. If Ningyu and the others were here, they would definitely notice that the old man's physique was similar to that of the illusory figure. Five-fingered immortal. That's right, the old man was none other than the owner of the five-fingered cauldron, the five-fingered celestial. How dare you touch my five-finger immortal pill? No matter who you are, no matter where you go, I will find you and grind your bones into dust. The five-fingered immortal clenched his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. Even his face had become somewhat distorted. In order to refine the five-finger immortal pill, he didn't hesitate to descend from a higher plane to the immortal spirit realm and spent a large amount of medicinal ingredients. Just as he was about to successfully concoct the pill, someone suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Not only did that person kill the clone he had left in the Five Fingers Cauldron, he even swallowed the Five Fingers immortal pill. How could he not be angry? Forget it. I'll put this matter aside for now. I'll settle the score with you after I've obtained the power of origin. The five-fingered immortal took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. The plane barrier had loosened, and his suppressed cultivation had also gained some leverage. Even though he couldn't display the strength of a sky immortal, he could use some trump cards to display the strength of a peak earth immortal. Actually, he had 2 plans for descending to the immortal spirit realm. The first plan wasn't to refine the five-finger immortal pill, but to obtain the power of origin. After all, the five-finger immortal pill was only a peak royal grade pill. There was still a gap between it and a true sage grade pill. The power of origin was different. The effect of the power of origin was comparable to that of a sage grade pill. as long as he could obtain a large amount of power of origin. When he returned to a higher plane, he could even advance to the mid-sky immortal stage. Once one's cultivation reached the sky immortal stage, every small step forward was 100 times more difficult than ascending to the heavens. An early sky immortal stage martial artist could rule over a territory, while mid-sky immortal stage martial artist could rule over several territories. The more territories they ruled, the more resources they would have, and the faster their cultivation would be. Therefore, who wouldn't want to rule over more territories? Whoosh! Ning, you didn't know about the Five-Finger Immortal's plan. After killing the illusory figure, he heaved a sigh of relief. Then he sat down cross-legged and began to refine the remaining power of the Five-Finger Immortal Pill in his body. Ning Yu's cultivation was currently at the peak sage grade. With just his physical strength, he could fight against a peak human immortal stage martial artist. But that wasn't enough. Ning Yu's plan was to refine the Five-Finger Immortal Pill as soon as possible, then see if he could control the Five-Finger Immortal Pill furnace. After all, if he wanted to leave the Five-Finger Immortal Pill, he had to control it. Otherwise, he could only look for the Five-Finger Immortal and beg him for help. Of course, Ning Yu knew better than anyone that he could look for help from anyone but the Five-Finger Immortal. He had killed the Five-Finger Immortal's clone and obtained the Five-Finger Immortal Pill. It would be strange if the Five-Finger Immortal was willing to help him. Buzz. Luckily, Ning Yu had used the Five-Finger Immortal Pill to refine his body first. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to withstand the terrifying power of the Five-Finger Immortal Pill. The energy in his body rumbled, and Ning Yu's aura skyrocketed at a terrifying speed. Bang! Not long after, there was a muffled sound. Ning Yu opened his eyes, and the aura in his body disappeared in a flash. Complete sage grade. Although Ning Yu withdrew his aura quickly, the sudden release of his aura did not escape the senses of Ning Lu and the Hong Mo, sensing the terrifying aura emitted from Ning Yu's body. Ning Lu and the Hong Mo looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Was the Five-Finger Immortal Pill really that terrifying? How long had it been? Only a dozen or so seconds had passed since he killed the illusory figure. In just a dozen seconds, Ning Yu had advanced from the peak sage grade to the complete sage grade. It was a miracle. Bang! What surprised the Hong Mo and Ning Lu was yet to come. Another dozen seconds later, there was another muffled sound. Early stage, human immortal grade. Ning Yu's cultivation had advanced from the complete sage grade to the real early stage, human immortal grade. Rumble. When Ning Yu advanced to the early stage human immortal grade, the void above the Five-Finger Immortal Pill cauldron suddenly trembled. Following this, several thunderbolts appeared, trying to strike Ning Yu. However, this was the immortal spirit region. If the thunderbolts wanted to strike Ning Yu, they would first have to break through the defense of the plane barrier. Moreover, after breaking through the defense of the plane barrier, they would have to break through the defense of the Five-Finger Immortal Pill cauldron. The thunderbolts in the void seemed to be very intelligent. They only appeared for a while before they suddenly disappeared. A powerful being could discover them. The thunderbolts did not retreat, but hibernated in the void. Chapter 1924. Ning Lu and Hong Mo thought that this would be the end of Ning Yu's advancement to the early stage human immortal realm. To their surprise, Ning Yu's aura continued to rise. Crack! Under the pressure of Ning Yu's powerful aura, the surrounding void began to crackle. This, Ning Lu's mouth was agape, his face filled with disbelief. Hong Mo, who was at the side, stood rooted to the ground with a dumbfounded expression. Both of them were extremely confused. Logically speaking, the medicinal power of the Five-Finger Immortal Pill shouldn't be that strong. Ning Yu had used the medicinal power of the Five-Finger Immortal Pill to temper his body, increasing his physical strength to the peak human immortal realm. The The remaining medicinal power of the five-finger immortal pill wasn't at its peak. Under such circumstances, Ningyu was still able to break through consecutively. It was unbelievable. Ning Lu and Hong Mo weren't the only ones who found it unbelievable. Ningyu himself was in disbelief too. Is there something strange about this five-finger immortal pill? Ningyu's expression turned solemn. He had already determined the grade of the five-finger immortal pill after using it to temper his body. A 10th grade Emperor grade pill was only a step away from becoming a sacred grade pill. If it was a real sacred grade pill, its effects would be obvious. Even if a portion of the medicinal power was used up, Ningyu would still be able to advance to the mid-stage human immortal realm easily. However, the medicinal power of a 10th grade Emperor grade pill wouldn't be able to last until Ningyu reached the mid-stage human immortal realm. Buzz. While Ningyu was feeling confused, the yuan qi in the five-finger immortal pill cauldron flew toward him. I got it. The arrival of countless essence qi made Ningyu instantly understand the ins and outs of the matter. The reason the five-finger immortal was furious about losing the five-finger immortal pill wasn't because it was a 10th grade Emperor grade pill, but because it was the key to controlling the five-finger immortal pill cauldron. To be exact, the five-fingered immortal had placed the key to controlling the five-fingered cauldron in the five-fingered immortal pill. Now that Ningyu had swallowed the five-finger immortal pill, he could naturally control the five-finger pill cauldron. However, at this time, Ningyu did not have time to think about how to control the five-fingered alchemy furnace. What he needed to do now was to do everything possible to improve his cultivation. Ning Lu, Hong Mo, the inside of the cauldron is safe. Go help Human Devil and see if you can capture that giant puppet alive. Ning Yu immediately sat down cross-legged and instructed Ning Lu and the Red Devil, while devouring the remaining medicinal efficacy of the five-finger elixir in his body and the primordial qi that surged over. Multitasking. Ever since he advanced to the early human immortal stage, Ningyu could even multitask 4 times without a problem, let alone 3 times. After all, human immortal level experts could already be called immortals. The five-fingered alchemy furnace is already safe. To be honest, Ning Lu and Hong Mo were very confused when they heard Ning use instructions. They had only killed a clone of the five-fingered immortal. Who knew if the five-fingered immortal had any other tricks up his sleeves? Why would Ningyu say that the five-fingered alchemy furnace was safe? The key to controlling the five-fingered alchemy furnace is the five-fingered immortal pill. Ningyu, who could see the doubts in their eyes, explained in a deep voice, "The five-fingered alchemy furnace is now under my control." Whoosh! Ning Lu and Hong Mo were relieved by Ningyu's words. Since Ningyu was in control of the five-fingered alchemy furnace, there was no point for them to stay any longer. Human Devil was still fighting the giant puppet, so the two of them could free up their hands to help. Although their cultivation had not reached the human immortal stage, it was not a problem for them to control the giant puppet from the side. Swish! Swish! With a flash, Ning Lu and the red fiend disappeared. Break through! After Ning Lu and Hong Mo left, Ningyu hurriedly used the spiritual transformation art to the extreme and began to devour the remaining medicinal efficacy of the five-fingered immortal pill and the surrounding primordial qi. Uft! However, Ningyu had not devoured for long before he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was on the verge of collapsing. Oh no! The medicinal efficacy of the five-fingered immortal pill has completely exploded. Ningyu's face was extremely gloomy. It was obvious that the five-fingered immortal knew that he had devoured the five-fingered immortal pill. However, the five-fingered immortal did not want him to devour the five-fingered immortal pill peacefully. Therefore, he completely detonated the medicinal efficacy of the five-fingered immortal pill, causing it to completely explode in Ningyu's body. If Ningyu's cultivation had been at the Earth Immortal stage, then the detonation of the five-fingered immortal pill would have been fine. After all, he could instantly devour the five-fingered immortal pill. However, the problem was that Ningyu was only at the early stage of the human immortal stage. There was still a long way to go before he could reach the mid-stage of the human immortal stage. Moreover, the spiritualization skill was only at the 9th level. Therefore, the speed at which he devoured the medicinal efficacy of the five-fingered immortal pill and the primordial qi was relatively slow. I must cultivate the spiritualization skill to the 10th level. Ningyu made a prompt decision and decided to use his body to withstand the impact of the primordial qi and the medicinal efficacy. As for himself, he would focus on cultivating the spiritualization skill. Although the speed at which the first 9 levels of the spiritualization skill devoured primordial qi was fast, it was far from enough for Ningyu. The cultivation of the 10th level of the spiritualization skill was imminent. He could not rush the cultivation of the 10th level of the spiritualization skill. Ningyu first took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Then, Ningyu went through the cultivation method of the 10th level of the spiritualization skill in his mind before he began to cultivate. Fortunately, Ningyu had cultivated the spiritualization skill to the peak of the 9th level, so he was not too far away from the 10th level. Moreover, his soul force was at the first-grade monarch stage, and his cultivation was at the early stage of the human immortal stage. Therefore, it only took him a few seconds to successfully cultivate the 10th level of the spiritualization skill. Otherwise, he estimated that he would need at least an hour to successfully cultivate the 10th level of the spiritualization skill. Devour everything. After cultivating the spiritualization skill to the 10th level, Ningyu's confidence instantly increased. He exerted the spiritualization skill to the extreme and began to devour madly. Qi. As the primordial qi in his body increased, Ningyu's body emitted a qi sound. Fortunately, this sound did not last for too long. When Ningyu advanced to the mid-stage of the human immortal stage, it stopped abruptly. Rumble. A terrifying aura shot out from Ningyu's body into the sky. Mid-stage of the human immortal stage. Ningyu's cultivation had reached the terrifying mid-stage of the human immortal stage. Only a few minutes had passed since Ningyu advanced to the early stage of the human immortal stage. From the early stage to the mid-stage of the human immortal stage in just a few minutes, Ningyu had created another miracle. Of course, Ningyu had created many miracles, so it was no longer surprising. There's still so much primordial qi. Chapter 1925. Now, Ningyu was faced with two choices. First, he could devour and refine all the yuan qi and the remaining medicinal effects of the five-finger immortal pill. In this way, his cultivation should be able to reach the peak of the human immortal stage without any suspense. However, this was also very risky. After all, Ningyu had made successive breakthroughs on the same day. His cultivation had not stabilized and was still fluctuating. If he were to break through to the peak of the human immortal stage now, there was a high possibility that the yuan qi in his body would become chaotic. It was not a wise move. Second, he could stop cultivating immediately and find a way to store all the yuan qi and medicinal effects as his trump card. With such a large amount of elemental qi, if handled properly, it could even be used to launch a sneak attack on an intermediate Earth immortal expert. In other words, with so much yuan qi, Ningyu had the ability to kill a mid-stage Earth immortal stage martial artist. After all, any intermediate earthly immortal realm expert possessed numerous trump cards, and it was as difficult as ascending the heavens to kill them. Black bead. Ningyu did not think for too long. He took out the black bead that he had taken from Emo Chinya. In Ningyu's opinion, since the black bead could store origin energy, It could definitely store so much yuan qi and the remaining medicinal effects of the five-finger immortal pill. Go in. After taking out the black bead, Ningyu immediately used his soul power to control the yuan qi around him to enter the black bead. This seemed easy, but it was actually quite difficult to do. If it was not for Ningyu's current cultivation, terrifying physical strength and powerful soul power, he would not have been able to complete this task. Drip, drip. Time was ticking away. In order to store all the yuan qi and the remaining medicinal effects of the five-finger immortal pill into the black bead, Ningyu could be said to have expended Herculean effort. From the moment Ningyu decided to store yuan qi to the moment he stored all the yuan qi into the black bead, it took him a total of 10 minutes. Ningyu heaved a sigh of relief when he had successfully stored all the primordial qi into the black pearl. He looked as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. If someone was next to Ningyu at this time, they would definitely see that Ningyu's whole body was soaked in sweat, and bean-sized beads of sweat were dripping down his forehead. In order to store this vital energy, Ningyu was almost exhausted. Whoosh! After tossing the black bead into his storage ring, Ningyu sat down with his legs crossed and began to circulate a spell technique to recover. Although Ningyu wanted to help Human Demon and the others, he was well aware of his own situation. At this moment, even a random sage-level warrior could easily kill him. Therefore, his top priority was to recover to his peak state as soon as possible, not to help the demonic humans. While Ningyu was recuperating, on the other side of the battlefield, the scales of victory were tilting in the human demon's favor, because Ning Lu and the Red Fiend had already joined the battlefield. Originally, Human Demon had the upper hand. Now, with the addition of two new forces, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. Ning Lu and the Red Fiend restrained the puppet from the side, while Human Demon attacked from the front. Although Human Demon's cultivation was only at the middle stage of Earth Immortal, he used to be a Sky Immortal expert. Against a puppet of the same cultivation level, especially with Ning Lu and the Red Fiend holding it back, it naturally wasn't too difficult. Human Demon stomped on the ground, his body rose into the air, and rushed toward the giant puppet. Clenching his right hand into a fist, Human Demon punched the giant puppet's head without hesitation. Crack! A crisp sound rang out. Following that, the Human Demon quickly retreated while the giant puppet crashed into the ground. If it weren't for Ningyu's order to capture the giant puppet alive, Human Demon's punch would have been enough to flatten the giant puppet's head. Of course, even if Human Demon could flatten the giant puppet's head, he wouldn't be able to kill it. This was because there were only two ways to kill the giant puppets. One was to use brute force to blow it up, and the other was to destroy the puppet's core. Guard me! I'm going to set up a formation to capture! Human Demon immediately shouted at Ning Lu and the Red Fiend after sending the giant puppet flying. However, Human Demon's expression changed drastically as soon as he finished speaking. Rumble! That was because a terrifying sound suddenly rang in his ears. Then, the entire cauldron began to shake. What's going on? The sudden change caused Human Demon's pupils to shrink, his face full of confusion. Whoosh! At this moment, Ningyu suddenly opened his eyes and took a step forward, landing beside Human Demon. Someone's attacking the cauldron. Since Ningyu had control over the cauldron, he naturally knew why it was shaking. The cauldron is already under your control, and its path has also deviated. So why is there still someone attacking it? The Red Fiend asked. If I've guessed correctly, the one attacking the cauldron should be the five-fingered immortal's disciple, Ningyu said with a grave expression. The five-fingered immortal's disciple? Hearing Ningyu's words, the Red Fiend and Ning Lu's eyes narrowed. According to Mo Chinya, the five-fingered immortal had a total of 5 disciples. Even the weakest one was in the intermediate, earthly immortal realm. Even his eldest disciple was infinitely close to the heavenly sovereign realm. Rustle! In an instant, Ning Lu and the Red Fiend shifted their gazes to human demon. With Ning Yu's overall strength, he might be able to confront and even kill an early earthly immortal realm cultivator. But facing an intermediate earthly immortal realm cultivator, he shouldn't be able to escape unscathed. That also meant that in the entire cauldron, only human demon could kill an intermediate earthly immortal realm cultivator. How many people are out there? Human demon asked. At this moment, human demon could feel the tension in the air. Having just experienced a great battle, although he had firmly suppressed the giant puppet, it would still take him a few more minutes to control it and make it work for him. And it was obvious that no one would be able to fight for him in these few minutes. 2. Ning Yu took a deep breath and said to the human devil, "Throw the giant puppet into the deepest part of the cauldron. I will activate the array inside the cauldron to trap it. Next, you and I will go out to fight the 2 experts outside. You'll go out with me?" Human demon was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect Ning Yu to say such a thing. If the 2 people outside were the 5-fingered immortal's disciples, then their cultivation would at least be in the intermediate earthly immortal realm, and they would have many trump cards. Ning Yu was a peak sage. No. Suddenly, human demon's eyes narrowed. His face was filled with shock. His attention had been focused on the giant puppet and the 2 experts outside. He didn't notice that Ning Yu had advanced to the intermediate earthly immortal realm. Human demon sized up Ning Yu. The more he looked, the more shocked he became. Not only had Ning Yu's cultivation reached the intermediate earthly immortal realm, but his physique had also reached a terrifying level. Chapter 1926. You've actually advanced to the mid-stage human immortal stage. The human demon was shocked. He remembered very clearly that it had only been an hour or so since he and Ning Yu parted ways. An hour wasn't short, but it wasn't long either. It was a miracle that Ning Yu could advance to the mid-stage human immortal stage from the peak sage stage in an hour. It was an almost impossible miracle. I'll deal with the 2 martial artists myself. The human demon's shock didn't last for long. He quickly turned to Ning Yu and said, "Since you can control the 5 fingers cauldron, why don't you stay here? When I'm fighting with the 2 martial artists outside, you can take the cauldron and leave." The human demon's plan was simple. He would hold back the 2 experts outside and buy enough time for Ning Yu. In his opinion, even if Ning Yu had advanced to the mid-stage human immortal stage, his strength wouldn't be too strong. With Ning Yu's current strength, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to deal with an early-stage Earth immortal stage expert. However, it would be extremely difficult for him to deal with a mid-stage or even a late-stage Earth immortal stage expert. Do you think you can still leave now? Ning Yu took a deep breath. He ignored the human demon's thoughts and leaped out of the 5 fingers cauldron. Damn it! The human demon cursed under his breath when he saw Ning Yu leave. He then followed closely behind Ning Yu. Ning Yu was only a mid-stage human immortal stage expert. The human demon didn't want Ning Yu to die for nothing. How dare you steal Master's 5 fingers immortal pill? I have to say you're really bold. Outside the 5 fingers cauldron, 2 martial artists stared at the human demon as he shot out of the cauldron and said in a low voice. The attention of these 2 martial artists was completely focused on the human demon. After all, Ning Yu was only a mid-stage human immortal stage expert. He wasn't worthy of their attention. So what if I did? The human devil took a step forward, shielding Ning Yu behind him, and said in a cold voice, "You 2 intermediate Earth immortal cats and dogs are not enough to make me compromise." The 2 cultivators who blocked the way didn't hide their cultivation, so the human devil could easily see through their cultivation. They were both intermediate Earth immortal experts. The human demon's worry was greatly alleviated when he found out that the 2 cultivators blocking his way were at the intermediate Earth immortal realm. As long as there weren't any late Earth immortal experts, he and Ning Yu might be able to contend against them. I alone am enough to kill trash like you. The human demons, goading, had clearly worked. One of the middle-aged men took a step forward and said in an awe-inspiring voice, "This day next year will be the anniversary of your death." Swords were drawn, and the battle was on the verge of breaking out. But right at this moment, Ning Yu hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Who are the two of you? Quickly tell me your names." "I, Ning Yu, don't kill nameless people." Five-Finger Immortal's fifth disciple, Chu Feng. Five-Finger Immortal's fourth disciple, Chu Yu. The two intermediate Earth Immortal experts replied in unison. Senior Human Demon, you deal with Chu Feng. Leave Chu Yu to me. Ning Yu thought for a moment, then said to the Human Demon, "Remember not to kill them immediately. If you can capture them alive, don't kill them." Arrogant, arrogant. Ning Yu's words infuriated Chu Feng and Chu Yu. Ever since they descended from the higher planes, they had never met a worthy opponent due to their powerful cultivation and terrifying soul power. Originally, they wanted to meet up with the Five-Finger Immortal in the Myriad Demon Ridge. But halfway there, they received news that the Five-Finger Immortal's immortal pill had been stolen. Thus, the two of them volunteered to kill those rascals. As for the other three disciples, they continued to head to the Myriad Demon Ridge to find a way to meet up with the Five-Finger Immortal. Swoosh! Chu Feng and Chu Yu obviously would not fight according to Ning Yu's arrangement. Both of them charged at the human demon, intending to kill him together. After all, in their hearts, Ning Yu was only an intermediate human immortal. How strong could he be? Therefore, their plan was to get rid of the human demon first, then deal with Ning Yu. However, while dreams were plentiful, reality was harsh. How could Ning Yu let the human demon deal with two of them at once? He hurriedly took out the red demon sword and slashed at Chu Yu. Swoosh! A terrifying sword gleam separated from the red demon sword and headed straight for Chu Yu. Even though Ning Yu was only an intermediate human immortal, the power of his sword radiance was enough to kill an early Earth immortal. Even though Chu Yu was an intermediate Earth immortal, he could not ignore the sword radiance that was powerful enough to kill an early Earth immortal. "I'll go kill this guy first." Chu Yu's expression was cold as she said to Chu Feng, "Haha, let's compete and see who can get rid of the opponent first." Chu Feng was not flustered by Ning Yu's terrifying strength. Instead, he threw his head back and laughed. Not only were they the disciples of the Five-Finger Immortal, but they were also well-deserved geniuses in their families. On the other hand, the Chu family was also a force that ruled over a region in the higher planes. Even though there were no heaven immortals in the family, there had been heaven immortals in the family a long time ago. The geniuses of the heaven immortal family practiced the real immortal arts and had a complete set of Taoist teachings. It was even rumored that Chu Feng and Chu Yu were qualified to be listed on the longevity roll in their own territories. Of course, that was not the case for now. Rumble. In an instant, Chu Feng and the human demon were engaged in a fierce battle. As soon as they clashed, Chu Feng noticed something wrong with the human demon. "So you're injured." Chu Feng raised his eyebrows and said sinisterly, "It seems like you're the same as us, also from a high-level plane. Moreover, your strength isn't bad. If you hadn't met me, you might have been able to keep your life. But since you've met me, you can only blame your bad luck." The human demon's injuries were not new. They were left from a long time ago when he fought with a heaven immortal. If the human demon was not injured, even 10 Chu Feng would not be his match. "Even though I'm injured, killing you is as easy as killing a dog." The human demon forced Chu Feng back and said coldly, "Ha ha ha," as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Chu Feng threw his head back and laughed maniacally. Then he changed the topic and said fiercely, "I was going to let you live, but since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish." Swoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Feng stomped on the ground and dashed forward again. Swoosh! Chu Feng's speed was so fast that the friction between him and the air produced a sizzling sound. Although Chu Feng was only a mid-stage Earth Immortal, his overall strength was comparable to that of a late-stage Earth Immortal. It was said that when Chu Feng had just advanced to mid-stage Earth Immortal, he had challenged a late-stage Earth Immortal elder in the family. There was no suspense in the outcome. Chapter 1927. To be able to defeat a late-stage Earth Immortal expert in one move. Even if that expert was not very talented, it was enough to show how terrifying Chu Feng was. Now that Chu Feng was fighting the human demon in his peak state, how could his combat power be weak? Rumble. The battle instantly escalated. Heaven imprisoning fist. The human demon clenched his right fist and charged at Chu Feng instead of retreating. Only the brave would win. Even though the human demon knew that Chu Feng was very strong, he was once a Sky Immortal expert, so his combat experience was many times greater than Chu Feng's. Therefore, even if Chu Feng was slightly stronger than him, he would not be able to defeat him in a short period of time, let alone kill him. While the human demon and Chu Feng were fighting fiercely, the battle between Ningyu and Chu Yu had reached its climax. Chu Yu was the fourth disciple of the Five-Fingered Immortal. In terms of combat power, she was even stronger than Chu Feng. Ningyu had just started fighting with Chu Yu, but he was already at an absolute disadvantage. If not for the fact that Ningyu's body was full of Yuan Qi and his body was as strong as an Earth Immortal expert, he would have been killed by Chu Yu. Even so, Ningyu could not fight Chu Yu head-on. He could only keep slashing out with his sword to restrain Chu Yu. I can't go on like this. Ningyu thought to himself as he fought with Chu Yu. Chu Yu was strong, and her soul power was not weak either. If the battle continued like this, the one who would lose would definitely be Ningyu. Fight! Ningyu's eyes revealed a determined look. He poured all the Yuan Qi in his body into the red demon sword and slashed out with a backhand slash. Swoosh! Following the sword slash was the black bead. At this point, Ningyu finally decided to use the black bead. He would first use the sword slash to attract Chu Yu's attention, then use the horrifying Yuan Qi in the black bead. Only by doing so could he kill Chu Yu in one strike. Ningyu did not want to give Chu Yu a chance to escape. Child's play. Chu Yu's lips curled into a smile as she watched the sword slash coming at her. She waved her sleeve and a strong wind swept out, colliding with the sword slash in front of her. Kacha! The sword light that Ningyu slashed out only lasted for a few seconds before shattering. Ha ha ha! Kid, you want to contend against me with just your strength? Sharpen your eyes in your next life. A person like me is someone you will never be able to. Seeing the sword light shatter, Chu Yu threw his head back and laughed. However, Chu Yu's laughter was only halfway through when it abruptly stopped, because he saw a black bead coming at him at an unbelievable speed. Moreover, from the black bead, he sensed an energy fluctuation that made his heart palpitate. Not good. At the critical moment, Chu Yu shouted loudly. Then, she hurriedly mobilized the Yuan Qi in her body, trying to block the black pearl. All right. Ningyu, who was in the distance, clenched his fists tightly when he saw Chu Yu's actions. If Chu Yu chose to escape, he would become a joke if he used the black pearl to deal with Chu Yu. After all, Chu Yu was at the intermediate Earth Immortal stage. Her speed of escaping was not slow at all. However, Chu Yu chose to block the black pearl. In other words, she chose death. This was because the energy contained in the black pearl was the sum of the Yuan Qi in the Five Fingers Cauldron and the remaining medicinal efficacy of the Five Fingers Immortal Pill. With such a huge amount of energy, even an advanced Earth Immortal stage expert would not be able to withstand it 100% of the time, let alone an intermediate Earth immortal stage expert. Human devil, retreat! Ning Yu did not let Chu Yu's foolish action get to his head. Instead, he immediately informed the human devil to retreat. Ning, you didn't want to do something like sacrificing 800 men to kill 1,000 enemies. All right. In fact, the moment Ningyu threw out the black pearl, the human devil had already planned to retreat. The human devil was not stupid. He knew that the black pearl was the thing on Ningyu that made his heart palpitate. He did not want to bear the terrifying power of the black pearl. Chu Feng, save me! As the black pearl got closer and closer to him, Chu Yu finally realized his foolish action. But it was too late for him to retreat now. He had no choice but to ask Chu Feng for help. Damn it! Chu Feng's pupils shrank. His entire being was filled with anger. Although he and Chu Yu were not blood brothers, they were closer than blood brothers. Chu Yu was in danger of being killed. How could he not be angry? But anger was one thing, but Chu Feng did not lose his mind. He knew that if he took the risk to save Chu Yu now, he would most likely be severely injured. And if he did not save Chu Yu, then Chu Yu would most likely be killed. For a moment he was faced with a dilemma. To save or not to save, this was the question. Boom! However, just when Chu Feng was considering whether or not to save Chu Yu, Ningyu controlled the black pearl and self-destructed in the air. Crack! 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 The terrifying aftermath of the black pearl's explosion caused the surrounding void to explode. Countless spatial cracks appeared. Uft! Chu Yu, who was at the center of the black pearl's explosion, could not even hold on for a second. She spat out a mouthful of blood. Her breath instantly dropped from the intermediate Earth immortal stage to the early Earth immortal stage. Moreover, Chu Yu's aura continued to drop. Early Earth immortal stage, peak human immortal stage, late human immortal stage, intermediate human immortal stage. Not long after, Chu Yu's breath dropped to the intermediate human immortal stage. I will make you pay with your lives. Chu Feng roared and rushed out until the aftermath of the black pearl's explosion weakened. But the direction Chu Feng rushed towards was not Ningyu and the human demon, but Chu Yu. He wanted to save Chu Yu first, then deal with Ningyu and the human demon. Boom! Unfortunately, Chu Feng had just rushed to Chu Yu's side when the black pearl exploded again. The aftermath of the extremely terrifying explosion blasted Chu Feng several feet away on the spot, and he fell heavily on the ground. Let's go together. This was the moment Ningyu had been waiting for. The energy contained within the black pearl was far beyond Chu Feng and Chu Yu's imagination. The first half of the explosion could severely injure Chu Yu. The second half of the explosion could severely injure Chu Feng. Seeing that Chu Feng and Chu Yu were both injured by the black pearl's explosion, Ningyu made a prompt decision to deal with these two troublemakers. Swoosh! Swoosh! He and the human demon rushed towards Chu Yu, one on the left and the other on the right. Damn it! Looking at the approaching Ningyu, Chu Yu said coldly, If you dare kill me, my master and my fellow disciples will definitely grind your bones to dust. Swoosh! Hearing Chu Yu's words, Ningyu's eyes brightened. He instantly stopped in front of Chu Yu. What, have you thought it through? Seeing Ningyu stop, Chu Yu raised an eyebrow and said coldly, It's not too late for you to surrender now. I will inform my master, the Five Fingers Immortal, and have him personally refine one for you. Hold on. I haven't thought it through. Chapter 1928. You want to capture me alive. Hearing Ningyu's indifferent words, Chu Yu's pupil shrank and his face turned deathly pale. He was very clear. Once he fell into Ningyu's hands, he would suffer a fate worse than death. You're smart. Ning, you didn't give Chu Yu too much time to think. He leaped up and arrived beside Chuyu in a flash. His right hand clenched into a fist and punched Chuyu's chest. Bang! The huge force that came from his chest caused Chuyu to fly like a kite with a broken string. His body flew straight out. Whoosh! After his attack succeeded, Ningyu did not hesitate at all and immediately chased after him. Bang! Bang! Then several crisp sounds rang out. A few of Chuyu's ribs were broken by the explosion. Seal her! Ningyu's powerful soul power was unleashed, completely sealing Chuyu. At this point, Chuyu couldn't use any of her energy or soul power. It could be said that Chuyu's life was in Ningyu's hands. Uft! Not long after Ningyu restrained Chuyu, the human demon on the other side sent news of victory. The human demon didn't waste too much time dealing with the weakened Chu Feng. Grabbing Chu Feng's shoulder with his right hand, the human demon landed beside Ningyu. What should we do with the two of them? The human demon casually threw Chu Feng in front of Ningyu and frowned. They are the disciples of the five-fingered immortal. I think we shouldn't kill them for now. I think the same. Ningyu nodded. They can be spared from death, but they can't escape punishment. As he spoke, Ningyu moved his feet and arrived in front of Chu Feng. He raised his left foot and stomped heavily on Chu Feng's head. Ningyu coldly said, "Tell me, where are your other 3 brothers? You want to know where they are? Dream on." Although Ningyu had stepped on his head, Chu Feng still said fiercely, "If you have the ability, you can kill me. My master and a few other brothers will definitely help me. As you wish." Before Chu Feng could finish his words, Ningyu exerted force with his left foot and stomped down hard. Kacha! Although Ningyu did not use his Yuan Qi in this kick, he used his soul force. Under the pressure of the powerful soul power, Chu Feng's head was directly trampled into mush. Xiao! Immediately after, a cold light suddenly shot out from Chu Feng's body and flew into the distance at an extremely terrifying speed. Primordial spirit. The cold light that shot out of Chu Feng's body was none other than Chu Feng's primordial spirit. The reason why Ningyu chose to crush Chu Feng's head was not because he thought it was useless to keep Chu Feng alive, but because he realized that Chu Feng was trying to escape. After all, the strength of Chu Feng's soul force had reached the 3rd grade of the Emperor rank. If he used his soul force to escape, it would be difficult for Ningyu to control him. Under such circumstances, Ningyu naturally chose to strike first to gain the upper hand. Where do you think you're going? Since Ningyu had crushed Chu Feng's head, he was prepared to completely destroy his primordial spirit. Moreover, Chu Feng's primordial spirit was not the only one fleeing. His terrifying soul force and Yuan Qi were also attached to his primordial spirit, wanting to escape together. Devour! Ningyu's speed was not inferior to Chu Feng's. He quickly caught up to Chu Feng and circulated the spiritual transformation art to the extreme. He began to frantically devour the Yuan Qi and soul force attached to Chu Feng's primordial spirit. Qi. After cultivating the spiritual transformation art to the 10th level, the speed at which Ningyu devoured Yuan Qi and soul force had clearly increased by several times. It only took Ningyu a few seconds to completely devour the vigorous Yuan Qi and soul force on Chu Feng's primordial spirit. Phew! After devouring the soul force and soul force on Chu Feng's primordial spirit, Ningyu couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Previously, in order to quickly advance to the intermediate human immortal stage, his foundation was a little unstable. Now that he had devoured Chu Feng, he instantly felt that his cultivation had completely stabilized. In fact, his combat power had been greatly improved. Although he still couldn't kill an intermediate Earth immortal stage warrior, it wasn't too big of a problem to resist a little. I'll leave Chu Feng's primordial spirit to the Red Devil. Ningyu held the Red Devil sword in his hand and slashed, piercing through Chu Feng's primordial spirit. Moreover, A terrifying suction force shot out from the red devil sword, sucking Chu Feng's primordial spirit into the sword. Swoosh! After doing all this, Ningyu leaped up and arrived in front of Chu Yu. I'll ask you a few questions now. If you can answer me honestly, I can choose to spare your life. If you insist on going about things the wrong way, I can only... Ningyu shrugged and said to Chu Yu, "There's no need. If you want to kill me, do as you please." Chu Yu seemed to have made up his mind. He said coldly, "Even if you kill me, you won't be able to escape the pursuit of my master, the five-fingered immortal." Seeking death wholeheartedly. Interesting. Ningyu crossed his arms in front of his chest and stared at Chu Yu with interest. Even ants were greedy for life, let alone a powerful warrior like Chu Yu. Ningyu didn't believe that Chu Yu would seek death. In Ningyu's opinion, there must be something fishy about this. I know. Suddenly, Ningyu seemed to have discovered something frightening. His expression turned extremely ugly. What's going on? The human demon asked doubtfully when he saw Ningyu's expression. After taking a deep breath, Ningyu said, "If I'm not wrong, this body of Chu Yu's is not his main body. In other words, this is Chu Yu's clone." Hiss! After hearing Ningyu's explanation, the human demon hurriedly unleashed his perception and looked at Chu Yu. The humanoid demon sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw what it was. No wonder Chu Yu was so fearless. It turned out that this body of his wasn't his main body, but a clone. Could it be that Chu Feng's is also a clone? The human demon asked. Shaking his head, Ningyu said, "Chu Feng's isn't a clone, but his main body. You can actually see that it's a clone." The conversation between Ningyu and the human demon fell into Chu Yu's ears. He revealed a terrified expression, his face full of incredulity. One had to know that even in the Chu family of the higher planes, there were no more than 5 people who knew that he had a clone. Even Chu Feng didn't know that this was a clone of himself. Now that Ningyu had seen through his clone, how could he not be surprised? However, although he was shocked, Chu Yu was still very calm. The corners of his lips curled up, and he said sinisterly, "To tell you the truth, my main body has also descended to the celestial spirit realm. You killing one of my clones won't affect me at all." "Oh, it won't affect you at all?" Ningyu raised his brows and said indifferently, "Although the myriad transformations art is heaven-defying, it's not without its flaws." You! Chu Yu's pupils constricted and his face turned deathly pale. Chapter 1929. It's not too late for you to regret it now. Answer a few of my questions honestly, and I can guarantee to spare your wretched life. Ningyu crossed his arms and looked at Chu Yu as he spoke indifferently. Actually, Ningyu already knew about the myriad embodiment technique and had even cultivated it before. The myriad embodiment technique that Ningyu had grasped was obtained from a genius of the pill puppet race. However, he had not cultivated it recently. Although Chu Yu had hidden it rather well, Ningyu had discovered that he had cultivated the myriad embodiment technique before. Furthermore, he had already successfully cultivated the first half of it, allowing him to have thousands of clones. The myriad embodiment technique had a total of 3 parts. The pill puppet race genius that Ningyu had encountered previously had only grasped the first half. If Xiao Chen's guess was right, Chu Yu should have the cultivation method for the middle half. Hence, before obtaining the middle half of the myriad embodiment technique, Ningyu could not possibly kill Chu Yu. After all, the myriad embodiment technique was very likely to be a martial technique that surpassed the sage tier. Chu Yu's expression turned gloomy when he heard Ningyu's words. He clenched his fists tightly as if he was having an intense internal struggle. Honestly speaking, if Ningyu did not know about the myriad embodiment technique, he would definitely not be as conflicted as he was now. This was because to him who had cultivated the boundless embodiment transformation technique and had cultivated it to the middle section, losing a clone was not a big deal. However, since Ningyu knew about the myriad embodiment technique, it was very likely that he had a way to deal with his main body. Losing a clone was nothing, but if the main body was injured, the impact on him would be irreversible. While Chuyu was thinking, Ningyu did not disturb him. Instead, he went to the human demon's side and took out Chu Feng's primordial spirit from the red demon's sword. Originally, Ningyu had intended to let the human demon devour Chu Feng's primordial spirit. After all, the human demon was very experienced in devouring primordial spirits and had already devoured the primordial spirits of several experts. If there were no surprises, if the human demon devoured Chu Feng's primordial spirit, there was a high chance that he would become a true human immortal. However, the human demon had just experienced a huge battle, so he was not in his peak condition. If an expert were to invade at this time, wouldn't they suffer a calamity? Therefore, handing over Chu Feng's primordial spirit to the human demon was the best choice. Be careful of Chuyu. Remember not to fall into his trap. The human demon didn't argue with Ningyu. He took the spirit and swallowed it. Then he warned, also, you better find a place to undergo your tribulation. You can't suppress it for too long. Otherwise, if a large amount of it accumulates, no matter how strong your body is, you won't be able to resist it. I got it. You should rest and recuperate first. I know what to do. Ningyu waved his hand, signaling the human demon not to worry. He knew the condition of his body better than anyone else. The moment he left the 5-finger pill furnace, the lightning tribulation in the void immediately found him. Fortunately, he had used his soul strength and yuan qi to deceive the heavens. Otherwise, the tribulation clouds would have descended long ago. Anyway, be careful. If anything happens, inform me immediately. The human devil exhorted again before leaping into the 5-fingered cauldron. Ask away. As long as it's not something I can't say, I will definitely tell you. As soon as the human demon entered the 5-finger pill furnace, Chuyu took a deep breath and said in a low voice, If it involves secrets, even I can't do anything. Why did you come to the immortal spirit realm with such great fanfare? Ningyu shrugged, not beating around the bush and asking directly. Actually, Ningyu knew what Chuyu meant. After all, some large sects and families were very strict when it came to secrets. Many chose to leave a seal in their disciples' sea of consciousness. If anyone dared to pry into the secrets, the large sects would even detonate the seal. In other words, Chuyu knew the secrets, but he couldn't say it, because if he did, the seal in his head would be activated and he would disappear. Naturally, it's for the source energy. Chuyu answered honestly. The plane barrier of the immortal spirit realm has already loosened greatly. I believe that after a period of time, the plane barrier will completely collapse. At that time, as long as one's cultivation is below the sky immortal level, they will be able to pass through without fear. Swoosh! Hearing this, Ningyu's face darkened. The strongest cultivator in the immortal spirit realm was only at the sage realm. Even if the plane barrier loosened and many people could break through to the immortal realm, they were still very weak compared to the experts of the higher planes. Not to mention the sky immortal. Even an earth immortal would be able to dominate the entire immortal spirit realm. As the saying went, how could one allow others to sleep soundly beside one's bed? The experts that descended from the higher planes didn't care about anything. To them, as long as there was a fortuitous encounter, they would fight for it with everything they had. At that time, the immortal spirit realm would be in danger of being wiped out. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu tried his best to calm himself down. It was still too early to think about such things. The most important thing now was to solve the problem in front of him, the 5 Fingers Immortal and his disciples. Ningyu looked at Chuyu and asked again, Where are your master, the 5 Fingers Immortal, and your other 3 disciples. The myriad demon ridge, Chuyu replied. How are their cultivation levels? Ningyu continued. My master, the 5 Fingers Immortal, is a heaven immortal expert. In order to obtain the source energy, he sealed his own cultivation and reached the immortal spirit stage a long time ago. Chuyu was like a very obedient person as she answered Ningyu's questions honestly. 3rd senior brother, Guoyong, is a late earth immortal, and his soul force is around grade 4 emperor level. 2nd senior brother, Lu Jiqing, is a peak earth immortal, and his soul force is around grade 6 emperor level. Eldest senior brother, Chun Xian, is a perfected earthly immortal, or in other words, a half-step heaven immortal. Rumor has it that the strength of his soul has reached the peak of the monarch rank, and he's only a step away from the true saint rank. After hearing Chuyu's answer, Ningyu's heart sank to the bottom. Although he knew from Mo Chinya that the 5 Fingers Immortal's disciples were abnormal, he didn't expect them to be this abnormal. With his current overall strength, he could fight against a mid-stage Earth Immortal, but if he met a late-stage Earth Immortal, he would be dead. He had taken the 5 Fingers Immortal's elixir and cauldron. Under such circumstances, if they met again, it would only be a fight to the death. With a gloomy expression, Ningyu looked at Chuyu and said in a deep voice, Do you know about the Transformation Sect? I heard that a divine son of the Transformation Sect has also come to the immortal spirit realm. The Transformation Sect's divine son. Chuyu's expression changed drastically. She was shocked to the extreme. Chuyu's reaction was clearly out of Ningyu's expectation. According to his understanding, the God Transformation Sect could only be regarded as a small sect in a high-level world. Even the sect master of the sect was only at the late Earth immortal stage. Chapter 1930. I didn't expect the divine son of the Transformation God sect to appear, and he's even at the celestial spirit state. Chuyu's expression was gloomy, as if she was thinking about how to spread this shocking news. The Transformation God sect might be a second-rate or even third-rate sect in a high-level plane, but the divine son of the Transformation God sect wasn't simple. There were rumors that the divine son of the Transformation God sect was the reincarnation of a heaven immortal, and there were also rumors that he was the reincarnation of an even more powerful expert. Of course, many people despised this rumor. They all thought that the God Transformation Sect was the one who spread the rumor and wanted to make themselves look good. However, Chuyu knew very well that the divine son of the Transformation God Sect really existed. And the most crucial point was that the divine son wasn't the reincarnation of an early-stage heaven immortal, but mid-stage heaven immortal patriarch. An early-stage heaven immortal could already dominate a territory, let alone a mid-stage heaven immortal. Although the divine son of the God Transformation Sect was only a middle-stage fairy immortal, his combat strength was still terrifying. I advise you not to provoke the Transformation God Sect. Chuyu returned to normal after a while and warned, The divine son of the Transformation God Sect is extremely terrifying. In the celestial spirit state, even my master, the 5-fingered immortal, wouldn't dare to say that he wouldn't lose. That terrifying? Ningyu was surprised. He thought that the divine son of the Transformation God Sect couldn't be that powerful. At best, he was just an earth immortal realm martial artist. Now that Chuyu said this, he had to take it seriously. The 5-fingered immortal was enough to give him a headache. Now, there was another divine son of the Transformation God Sect who was no weaker than the 5-fingered immortal. Could he still reach the myriad demons' ridge safely? Thinking of this, Ningyu rolled his eyes and looked at Chuyu. Chuyu immediately hugged herself and felt goosebumps when she was stared at by Ningyu. Hand over the middle section of the great art of freedom transformation. Ningyu stretched out his right hand and said indifferently, Don't try to play tricks with me. Since I know the great art of freedom transformation, I definitely know that what you gave me is not real. I don't have the middle part of the 10,000 freedom transformations. Chu Yu's eyes flickered, but in the end he still gritted his teeth and said, I only successfully cultivated the first half of the infinite freedom transformation technique. Otherwise, I would definitely abandon this clone. Not talking, Ning Yu raised his eyebrows and said, Very well, I have a way to deal with people like you. Ning rode. Then Ning Yu contacted Ning Lu, who was in the five-finger pill furnace. Ning Lu was the manifestation of the world tree, so it couldn't be better for him to devour Chu Yu. Even though the Chu Yu in front of him was only a clone, his cultivation was a genuine, intermediate, earthly immortal. Ning Yu knew his own strength very well. It wasn't that he couldn't devour Chu Yu, he just couldn't devour Chu Yu's memories together. Obtaining the middle part of the myriad free transformations technique from Chu Yu was the most important thing right now. The reason for that was because their enemies were not only the five-fingered immortal, but they were also the mysterious and unfathomable God transformation sex godchild. Whoosh! After receiving Ning Yu's order, Ning Lu instantly swept out of the five-finger pill furnace. Slap! Ning Lu didn't stand on ceremony with Chu Yu. He landed in front of Chu Yu, stretched out his right hand, and slapped Chu Yu's head. Ah! Along with Chu Yu's scream, a dark golden branch drilled out of Ning Lu's palm. Obviously, this dark golden branch was Ning Lu's natal branch. In order to devour Chu Yu as soon as possible, Ning Lu used his trump card right from the start. Under Ning Lu's terrifying devouring speed, Chu Yu immediately spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. Her entire face turned from blood red to pale white. Found it. After devouring for a few seconds, Ning Lu found the middle part of the myriad free transformations technique in Chu Yu's memory. Ning Lu didn't hesitate. He devoured Chu Yu's memory while passing the middle part of the myriad free transformations technique to Ning Yu. 10 seconds later, all the information about the myriad free transformations technique in Chu Yu's memory was completely devoured by Ning Lu. What? There's more in the five-fingered cauldron. Oh no! After devouring the memory about the myriad free transformations technique, Ning Lu continued to devour, wanting to understand other things. However, just as Ning Lu was about to continue devouring, his expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly retreated. Rumble! When Ning Lu retreated to Ning Yu's side, Chu Yu's doppelganger suddenly exploded. The terrifying shockwave sent Ning Yu and Ning Lu flying dozens of feet away. They crashed heavily into a towering tree. Crack! The huge tree, which was as thick as a person's waist, was broken on the spot. Uft, uft. Ning Yu and Ning Lu both spat out a mouthful of blood. What's going on? After the explosion, Ning Yu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and asked in a low voice, What else is in the five-fingered cauldron? Ning Lu did not immediately answer Ning Yu's question. Instead, he tried hard to recall, then wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, I didn't find out the specifics. I only saw in Chu Yu's blurry memory that there was something else in the five-fingered cauldron. It should be related to the five-fingered immortal. Related to the five-fingered immortal. Related to the five-fingered immortal. Ning Yu's expression was solemn. In fact, he always felt that it was a bit unrealistic to seize control of the five-fingered immortal cauldron so easily. After all, the five-fingered immortal was a sky immortal, and he was also a saint-level alchemist. It was impossible for someone of this level to do anything without planning. Do I have to abandon the five-fingered immortal cauldron? Seeing that Ning Yu was deep in thought, Ning Lu said, The five-fingered immortal cauldron is an alchemy cauldron on the immortal ranking list. It is a saint-level Dharma treasure. It would be a pity to abandon it. I definitely can't abandon it. Ning Yu shook his head, indicating that he could not abandon the five-fingered immortal cauldron. Right now, the only saint-level Dharma treasure he had was the red demon sword. However, the red demon sword and the five-fingered immortal cauldron were countless times weaker. It could be said that if the red demon sword clashed head-on with the five-fingered immortal cauldron, the red demon sword would definitely lose. Yuzuin Pagoda. Suddenly, Ning Yu seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly took out the Yuzuin Pagoda. Although Ning Yu had not paid much attention to the Yuzuin Pagoda, it was undeniably the most mysterious Dharma treasure he had. Before the battle in the Moling Mountains, the Yuzuin Pagoda did not belong to him, but to the mysterious expert inside. When the mysterious expert left, he gave him 3 drops of true dragon blood and told him to take good care of the golden-haired girl. He even said that the golden-haired girl had a terrifying background. In other words, the Yuzuin Pagoda was very likely the mysterious expert's Dharma treasure. Even though Ning Yu had advanced to the mid-stage human immortal stage, he could not determine the mysterious expert's true cultivation. Throw the five-fingered immortal cauldron into the Yuzuin Pagoda. Chapter 1931. Whoosh! The moment Ning Yu's voice fell, the human demon and the rest rushed out of the cauldron in a flash. After emerging from the cauldron, the human devil looked at Ning Yu and asked, "What happened?" While he was inside the cauldron, the human demon had already devoured Chu Feng's primordial spirit. After devouring Chu Feng's primordial spirit, the human demon had not only recovered to his peak state, but his combat prowess had also increased qualitatively. Previously, the human demon could only fight against mid-earth immortal experts. But now, the human demon's aura had faintly reached the late-earth immortal stage. In other words, with the human demon's current strength, he wouldn't even need to fear late-earth immortal experts. The five-fingered immortal might have left something behind in the cauldron. Ning Yu's expression was solemn as he explained, "Although I'm in control of the cauldron, I have a feeling that everything was under the five-fingered immortal's control." Left something behind? The human demon's expression turned solemn after hearing Ning Yu's explanation. The five-fingered immortal was a celestial immortal, and any celestial immortal had unfathomable strength. Moreover, the human demon was also a celestial immortal back in the higher planes, so he was very familiar with the methods of a celestial immortal. "What do you plan to do?" the human demon asked. "Why don't I destroy the cauldron?" The human demon was a ruthless person. The cauldron on the immortal ranking was a treasure that every pill master dreamed of owning. But when it came to human devil, he destroyed it without any hesitation. "I plan to throw the cauldron into the Tower of Yuzu." Ning Yu flicked his wrist and took out the Tower of Yuzu. "Are you sure you want to put the cauldron in the Tower of Yuzu?" The human demon frowned as he looked at the Tower of Yuzu in Ning Yu's hand. To be honest, he had seriously studied the Tower of Yuzu some time ago. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't determine the true level of the Tower of Yuzu. It had to be said that placing the five-finger pill cauldron into the Tower of the Ascension of Yu, without knowing which was higher, was an extremely risky move. "This is the only thing I can do." Ning Yu sighed and opened the Yuezuin Pagoda, wanting to throw the five-finger cauldron inside. Wait. However, before Ning Yu could throw the cauldron into the Ascension Pagoda, he heard a low voice. Ning Yu was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then his mouth opened wide in surprise. "Little Qilin?" Whoosh! Without a doubt, the one who spoke was none other than the little Qilin that had entered the Tower of Yu a long time ago. The little Qilin's figure flickered and appeared from the Tower of Yuzuin. Looking at the five-fingered pill furnace in Ning Yu's hand, the little Qilin said in a deep voice, "I know what's inside the five-fingered pill furnace." "Do you know what's inside the five-finger cauldron?" Ning Yu's expression changed slightly as he asked in confusion. It was no wonder Ning Yu had such an expression. The little Qilin had been in the tower of Yuzu all this time and hadn't come out ever since it obtained the cauldron. In other words, it hadn't even seen the cauldron before. How could it know what was in it? However, Ning Yu knew that the little Qilin wasn't one to speak without thinking. He looked at it, waiting to hear its explanation. The little Qilin didn't answer Ning Yu directly. Instead, it looked at Wu Patian and the others. Ning Yu understood and set up a soundproof barrier around them with a wave of his hand. Only him, Ning Lu, the little Qilin, the human demon, the Dark Emperor, and the Red Devil were inside. As for Wu Patian and the others, they didn't have the right to hear these secrets. The little Qilin's gaze swept across the Dark Emperor and Ning Lu before it said, "There's another pill in the cauldron. If I'm not wrong, it should be at the pinnacle of the sage tier." Gasp! Everyone inside the soundproof barrier gasped when they heard the little Qilin's explanation. Ning Yu's mouth was slightly agape, his face full of shock. He had devoured the 5-finger immortal pill before and knew how terrifying a sage tier pill was. However, the pill he devoured was probably only at the pinnacle of the monarch tier to the 1st grade of the sage tier. Now that the little Qilin said that there was another pill in the cauldron, it was very likely to be at the pinnacle of the sage tier. How could Ning Yu not be surprised? A sage tier pill was enough to make human immortals and even earth immortals go crazy, let alone a pinnacle of the sage tier pill. If a pinnacle of the sage tier pill really appeared, even heaven immortals would be alarmed. I actually don't know about this. Someone told me. The shock of Ning Yu and the others was clearly within the little Qilin's expectations. It took the cauldron from Ning Yu and said, "You should be familiar with the person who told me that there's a pinnacle of the sage tier pill in the cauldron. I'm familiar with him." Ning Yu frowned slightly, already having a rough idea of what was going on. Swoosh! As expected, Ning Yu's guess was right. In the next moment, a figure flew out of the Tower of Ascension and landed on the little Qilin's back. A golden-haired girl. The figure was none other than the golden-haired girl that the mysterious expert had asked Ning Yu to ensure his safety before he left. The golden-haired girl seemed to be under some kind of control. Sitting on the little Qilin's back, she grabbed the cauldron with her right hand. Then the golden-haired girl did something that left everyone dumbfounded. The golden-haired girl stared at the cauldron for 3 seconds, then opened her mouth and swallowed it. Crunch! The golden-haired girl chewed, and the cauldron made a crisp, crunching sound in her mouth. Gulp! The sudden change was clearly out of everyone's expectations. Everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva and stared at the golden-haired girl. Among them, the little Qilin was the most nervous. It was highly focused. If the golden-haired girl made the slightest mistake, it would immediately come to her rescue. Burp. However, Ning Yu and the others' worries were clearly unnecessary. About 3 minutes later, the golden-haired little girl swallowed the entire 5-fingered pill furnace and burped. This, Ning Yu and the human demon exchanged a glance and saw disbelief and confusion in each other's eyes. At this moment, a doubt rose in their hearts at the same time. What exactly is the golden-haired girl's identity? One should know that the cauldron was a cauldron on the immortal ranking of pill cauldrons. It was at least a saint-grade cauldron. However, such a saint-grade cauldron was easily swallowed by the golden-haired girl. There were many races in the world that possessed powerful devouring abilities, such as the sky-devouring dog, the sky-devouring python, the sky-devouring sparrow. However, Ning Yu and the others had never heard of any human race with such a terrifying devouring ability. Swish! Just as Ning Yu and the others were puzzled, the golden-haired girl suddenly opened her mouth and spat out a cold golden light. Chapter 1932. What the F asterisk CK? Ning Yu couldn't help but curse when he saw the golden glow hovering in front of him. The reason why Ning Yu would swear was because the golden cold light was none other than a medicinal pill, a golden medicinal pill. Ning Yu could sense a terrifying energy, fluctuation, coming from the golden pill. It was obvious that the golden pill was of a much higher grade than the five-finger divine pill. Thank you for taking care of me all this time. Take this five-finger divine pill as your reward. The golden-haired girl lifted her right hand and pointed at the golden pill in front of Ning Yu. I've erased the spiritual imprint that the five-finger immortal left in the five-finger divine pill. You can devour it without worry. As soon as she said the word devour, the golden-haired girl stomped on the ground and dashed into the distance at a terrifying speed. Ning Yu hadn't expected the golden-haired girl to leave so suddenly. Ning Yu remembered clearly that before the mysterious powerhouse had left, he had repeatedly reminded him to ensure the golden-haired girl's safety. Now that the golden-haired girl had left, what should he do if the mysterious powerhouse came looking for him? You can't leave. At this thought, Ning Yu couldn't care less anymore. He shouted, What will happen to me if you leave? If He Kuin comes looking for you, tell him that I, Su-Ying, left on my own accord. The golden-haired girl replied without turning her head. Su-Ying? Ning Yu was slightly stunned. He was clearly confused. He seemed to remember that the golden-haired girl wasn't called Su-Ying. Ning Yu, I have to leave too. Just as Ning Yu was feeling confused, the little Kylan's voice rang in his ears. You have to leave too? Ning Yu regained his composure instantly. He looked at the little Kylan and said, I can tell that Su-Ying is very powerful. I can rest assured if she leaves alone, but you— Ning Yu did not continue. But Ning Yu believed that little Kylan would understand. After all, little Qilin's current cultivation was not even at the human immortal realm. Before the plane barrier had loosened, the little Kylan's cultivation might have been able to do as it pleased in the immortal spirit realm. However, the plane barrier had already been greatly weakened. Sages could be said to be everywhere in the immortal spirit realm, and human immortals were as numerous as dogs. With the cultivation of the little Qilin saint, it would probably be difficult for it to move an inch. If it were me, I wouldn't be so stupid as to leave, but I'm not alone. The little Kylan smiled at Ning Yu before leaping up and flying off into the distance. Su-Ying is waiting for me over there. Buzz. As the little Kylan's figure flickered, a buzzing sound was suddenly emitted from the distant space. Then, Ning Yu saw void abundance reveal a shadow. I hope everyone will be safe and sound the next time we meet. Ning Yu stared in the direction little Qilin and void abundance had disappeared in and murmured, If I'm not wrong, this pill should be a pinnacle sage grade pill. Although Ning Lu was shocked by Su-Ying and little Qilin's departure, what really shocked him was the golden pill floating in front of Ning Yu. Since Ning Yu could tell the grade of the pill, he could naturally tell as well. It is indeed a pinnacle sage grade pill. Before Ning Yu could reply, the human demon nodded and said, The five-finger sage pill can give early-stage sky immortals a high chance of breaking through to the mid-stage sky immortal realm. This pill must have been prepared by the five fingers immortal to break through to the mid-stage sky immortal realm. From the five-finger saint pill, the human demon felt a pure and terrifying energy ripple. At this moment, the human demon couldn't help but suspect Su-Ying's identity. Even though he was a sky immortal in a high-level plane, he couldn't determine Su-Ying's true identity. She had directly swallowed the five fingers sage pill cauldron and erased the five fingers immortal soul imprint in the five-finger sage pill. This wasn't something that just anyone could pull off. In fact, a place had already appeared in the human demon's mind. The central godly dynasty. High-level planes had many territories, some of which were so remote that they only had one sky immortal. The central godly dynasty, however, was different. It ruled over thousands of territories and had as many sky immortals as dogs. There were even many experts who had surpassed the sky immortal realm. Taking a deep breath, the human demon temporarily suppressed his doubts. He looked at the five-finger sage pill and said, Ningyu, with your mid-stage sky immortal cultivation, if you devour the five-finger sage pill, you will definitely break through to the earth immortal realm. It's that terrifying, Ningyu exclaimed. He knew that he had a high chance of breaking through to the earth immortal realm after devouring the five-finger sage pill, but he hadn't expected it to be 100% sure. It's more than terrifying. A five-finger sage pill can give early-stage sky immortals a high chance of breaking through to the mid-stage sky immortal realm. What do you think? I can't devour the five-finger sage pill now. Ningyu's face darkened, then he shook his head. I've just reached the mid-stage sky immortal realm. I'm still suppressing the heaven immortal tribulation. If I rush into the earth immortal realm, I might not be able to withstand 2 heaven tribulations in a row. You're right, the human demon nodded. The heaven immortal tribulation might not be that difficult for Ningyu now. After all, Ningyu's soul force and body were far stronger than an early-stage sky immortal realm martial artist. How about this? I'll split the five-finger sage pill into 6 portions. Ningyu thought about it. 1 for me, 1 for you, 1 for Ning Lu and Hong Mo, 1 for the Dark Emperor. As for the 6th portion, Ningyu frowned. Even though Lu Ni's cultivation speed was fast, she was still only a heavenly supreme. There was still a long way to go before she could reach the Saint Realm. Even if he gave the 6th portion to Lu Wei wouldn't be able to devour it. On the path of cultivation, more haste, less speed. Ning, you didn't want to spoil Lu Wei. After thinking about it, Ningyu said solemnly, I've decided to give the 6th portion to Zhao Hang. Actually, giving the 6th portion to Zhao Hang was something that Ningyu had thought about deeply. If not for Zhao Hang's help at Wu Hong Cave, Ningyu definitely wouldn't have been able to leave. Ningyu was a vengeful person. He had promised to help Zhao Hang find the source energy, but so much time had passed and he still hadn't fulfilled his promise. Thus, he wanted to give the 6th portion to Zhao Hang as a form of repayment. As for Yi Jiansong, Meng Chang'an, and the others, Ningyu wanted to help them charge for human immortal realm. Xiu! Ningyu flicked his wrist, and in an instant, a cold light swept out from his sleeve, splitting the five-finger saint pill in front of him into 6 parts. Swish, 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 swish. Of the 6 five-finger holy elixirs, 1 was given to the human devil, 1 to Ning Lu, 1 to the red devil, and 1 to the dark emperor. Chapter 1933. Outside the soundproof barrier, Zhao Hang, Wu Patian, and the others stared the five-finger sacred pill. Although Ningyu had used the soundproof barrier to isolate their conversation, the power of the five-finger sacred pill could not be hidden from Zhao Hang and the rest. Actually, Zhao Hang and the rest had the same thought. Their relationship with Ningyu was not particularly close. Even if Ningyu divided the five-finger sacred pill into a few portions, there was no way they would get one. Wu Patian and the rest were fine. After all, their cultivation was at the peak of the sage realm. Even without the five-finger sacred pill, they could still break through to the human immortal realm. However, Zhao Hang was different. Zhao Hang was only at the intermediate sage realm. Although his combat power was terrifying enough to fight against a peak sage realm martial artist, what he needed now was not to break through to the human immortal realm, but the origin energy. In other words, something that could replace the origin energy. Although the five-finger sacred pill in Ningyu's hand was not the origin energy, it had reached the peak of the sage realm. In a sense, it could already replace the origin energy. If only Ningyu could give me the last portion of the five-finger sacred pill. Zhao Heng looked at Ningyu in the soundproof barrier and couldn't help but shake his head. How precious was the Five Fingers Sacred Pill? Ask yourself honestly, if he obtained the Five Finger Saint Pill, would he give a portion to Ningyu? I hope that Ningyu will keep his promise and give me some of the origin energy during this trip to the Thousand Demon Ridge. Zhao Heng looked a little lonely. When he first met Ningyu, he was trying his best to help Ningyu. Who would have thought that in a short 2 months, Ningyu would break through to the intermediate human immortal realm and leave him in the dust? I wonder how much longer my sister can last. Zhao Heng stood on the spot and sighed softly as he gazed into the distance. Actually, there was something that Zhao Heng did not tell Ningyu. The reason why he wanted the source energy was to save his sister. A few days ago, he had secretly used a secret method to contact his sister and learned that his sister should be able to hold on for about half a month. Half a month's time wasn't short, but it wasn't long either. Because he couldn't be sure that he could obtain source energy within half a month, Zhao Heng told the people taking care of his little sister to bring her to the Myriad Demon Ridge, which was also to say that Zhao Heng decided to fight to the death inside the Myriad Devil Ridge. Xiao. However, just as Zhao Heng was thinking about this, a cold light suddenly flew out from the soundproof barrier and flew toward him at an extremely frightening speed. Ningyu's voice was heard along with the cold light. I'll leave this sacred pill for you. I hope you won't disappoint me and break through to the human immortal stage. Hua. Ningyu's voice caused Zhao Heng's expression to instantly change. His eyes widened in disbelief. Ning, you had given him the last portion of the five-fingered sacred pill? Even though he had imagined this happening before, he was still dumbfounded when it actually happened. It felt like a dream to him. That was the five-fingered sacred pill. What? You don't want it? Ningyu activated the soundproof barrier and slowly approached Zhao Heng. He grabbed the five-fingered sacred pill floating in front of Zhao Heng and said, "If you don't want it, I can give it to someone else." No, no, no. Zhao Heng reacted instantly and blurted out, "I want it. I really need the five-fingered sacred pill." Ningyu smiled when he saw Zhao Heng's reaction and said, "I'm not giving you the sixth portion of the five-fingered sacred pill for you to thank me. I want you to break through to the human immortal realm so that you can help me in the upcoming trip to the Myriad Demon Ridge." This, Zhao Heng bit his lips and wore a hesitant expression. Ningyu frowned slightly and asked, "Is there a problem?" Taking a deep breath, Zhao Heng explained, "I want to keep the five-fingered sacred pill and not consume it for now." Ningyu was stunned. He clearly did not expect Zhao Heng to make such a decision. After all, anyone who saw the five-fingered sacred pill would find it hard to remain calm. Ning Lu, the Dark Emperor, and the rest had already swallowed the five-fingered sacred pill into their stomachs and were currently sitting cross-legged on the ground to refine it. Even the Red Fiend and Human Fiend were busy. Among them, Human Fiend was using the medicinal power of the five-fingered sacred pill to heal the wounds left in his body from his battle with a heaven immortal. He was trying to unleash the battle power of a peak earth immortal. As for the Red Fiend, he took the five-fingered sacred pill and entered the Red Fiend sword. He was the sword spirit of the Red Fiend sword. Swallowing the five-fingered sacred pill inside the Red Fiend sword could ensure that it would not be wasted. Even if there was overflowing medicinal power, the Red Fiend sword could devour it. Now that Zhao Heng said that he would not consume the five-fingered sacred pill for now, how could Ningyu not be shocked? However, even though he was shocked, Ningyu did not ask any further. After all, he had already handed the five-fingered sacred pill to Zhao Heng. How he handled it was Zhao Heng's business. City Lord Yi, Chairman Meng. Ning, you did not look at Zhao Heng, but turned to Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an. He said, "Your cultivation is at the peak of the sage realm. Now that the plane barrier has loosened, you should be able to charge for human immortal now, right?" Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an did not hide anything and nodded. To be honest, the two of us have already accumulated enough. We just do not have the confidence to withstand the human immortal tribulation. The human immortal tribulation is indeed terrifying. Since ancient times, many geniuses have been killed by the human immortal tribulation. Ning Yu nodded in agreement. The loosening of the plane barrier caused the cultivation of many immortal spirit state natives to skyrocket. Many even chose to charge for human immortal directly. However, Ning Yu knew that if he was not strong enough, he would only die if he tried to charge for human immortal tribulation. The two of you are slightly stronger than Chairman Meng and the rest. You should be able to withstand the human immortal tribulation. Ning Yu looked at Wu Patian and Divine War Crane and asked, "We are indeed able to withstand the human immortal tribulation. However, the immortal spirit state is undergoing a drastic change. Even if we reach the early human immortal stage, it will not help." Wu Patian and Divine War Crane were more farsighted. Recently, all the enemies they faced were earthly immortal experts. Even if they reached the intermediate or advanced human immortal stage, it would not be of much help, let alone the early human immortal stage. "What do you think?" Ning Yu asked. "We want to return to our respective regions to retrieve some things." Wu Patian and Divine War Crane looked at each other and said in unison. Both of them were leaders of their respective regions. They had many trump cards that they did not bring with them. Therefore, they wanted to make a trip back before the source energy in the Thousand Demons Ridge exploded completely. They wanted to prepare some life-saving measures. Everyone has their own ambitions. Chapter 1934. Ning Yu naturally wouldn't treat Wu Patian and the Divine Crane the same way he treated Zhao Hang. After all, Zhao Hang had actively helped him in the Wu Hung Cave, while Wu Patian and the Divine Crane had helped him passively. At the plaza of the Pill Emperor City, Wu Patian and the Battle God Crane had helped him and stood on the same side as him. It was only after they had defeated Gong Yangqing. Therefore, Ning Yu choosing to give them a promise was already extremely benevolent. "We'll meet again." Wu Patian and the Divine Crane took the crystal ball from Ning Yu and leaped into the void. After Wu Patian and the Divine Crane left, Ning Yu's gaze shifted to Elder Tianji and Yun Mu. Elder Tianji and Yun Mu's group were probably the weakest at the scene. According to Ning Yu's thoughts, it was best not to let them follow him on this trip to the Myriad Demon Ridge. With the plane barrier loosening, the Myriad Demon Ridge would definitely be a gathering place for all sorts of monsters. At that time, even a human immortal might not be able to establish a foothold there, let alone Elder Tianji and Yun Mu. We might have to go to the Myriad Demon Ridge later. What do you guys think? Ning Yu looked at Elder Tianji and Yun Mu and asked directly. "We won't go to the Myriad Demon Ridge." Elder Tianji knew that Ning Yu was worried about their safety, so he said, "We'll be staying in the Alchemy Emperor City for a period of time." Although Elder Tianji really wanted to go to the Myriad Demon Ridge to seek fortuitous encounters, he knew his own limits. His strongest point was his knowledge of divination. However, the plane barrier loosening this time led to the descent of the high-level heavens secrets, sex experts. What happened not long ago was still vivid in Elder Tianji's mind, and he would never forget it. If it wasn't for Ning Yu's help, he might have been killed by the high-level heavens secret sex people. And in this trip to the Myriad Demon Ridge, they would definitely encounter the high-level heavens secret sex experts. Therefore, after careful consideration, Elder Tianji finally decided not to go to the Myriad Demon Ridge. "All right, I respect your decision." With a thought, Ning Yu transmitted the divination art he had obtained from perfected Withered Domain and by Chang to the divination elder. This. The sudden influx of information in his mind caused the Elder of Heavenly Secrets to gape in shock. He was a native of the immortal spirit realm, and the divination art he had obtained in the past wasn't the real one, but an incomplete one. Now, the divination art that Ningyu had imparted to him was the genuine divination art, the true divination art. Most importantly, not only had Ningyu taught him the divination art, but he had also given him a divination stone. Although the Heaven Fate Stone in Ningyu's hand could no longer be used to increase his cultivation, it could still be used for fortune-telling. Words cannot express my gratitude. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets knew that the divination art and Heaven Fate Stone that Ningyu had given him were priceless treasures. He cupped his fists and said to Ningyu, "I will remember this favor." After saying that, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets pulled Yunmu's hand and flew towards the Pill Emperor city. Seeing how highly the Elder of Heavenly Secrets treated Yunmu, Ningyu slightly furrowed his brows. He vaguely felt that something was amiss. He had been paying attention to Yunmu all this time. Truth be told, Ningyu had always been suspicious about Yunmu's identity. According to Yunmu, she was the reincarnation of the 100 Flower Palace's ancestor. However, Ningyu was very suspicious. He felt that Yunmu's identity wasn't simple. However, there was no point in thinking about this now. Ningyu reorganized his thoughts and turned to look at Ziyun. Regarding Ziyun, Ningyu was actually very conflicted. Ziyun's physique was very special, and it could be compared to Lu Wei. If he cultivated with Ziyun, he would be able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. "I'm willing to follow you to the Myriad Demon Ridge." Seeing that Ningyu was looking at her, Ziyun didn't wait for Ningyu to speak before saying, "In the Celestial Spirit region, I don't even have a single relative. When I'm with you, I feel very warm." Ningyu's face was full of black lines. He didn't think that Ziyun would have this kind of thought. It was indeed out of his expectations. It should be known that Ziyun had followed them in the beginning because she was controlled by Ninglu. Now that Ziyun had changed her mind, how could Ningyu not be surprised? However, being surprised was just being surprised. Ningyu didn't dwell too much on this matter. He nodded and said, "Since you're willing to follow us, then follow us. However, I have to remind you that you can only stay in the storage ring. Without my permission, you definitely can't come out." Ziyun's cultivation was only at the intermediate stage of the Sage Realm. Ning, you didn't want to have to look after her in the Myriad Demon Ridge, because this trip to the Myriad Demon Ridge was destined to be fraught with grim possibilities. Rumble. At this moment, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the void. "Oh no! All of you go into the storage ring. My lightning tribulation is coming." The sudden change caused Ningyu's expression to change drastically, and he hurriedly spoke. This rumbling sound wasn't something else, but a sign that Ningyu's lightning tribulation was about to descend. Ever since Ningyu had advanced to the intermediate stage of the human immortal stage, he had been trying his best to suppress the lightning tribulation. Who would have thought that the lightning tribulation would suddenly erupt? Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Hearing Ningyu's words, coupled with the rumbling lightning in the void, the human demon and the others all went into the storage ring in a flash. However, what shocked Ningyu was that there were still 2 cultivators in front of him. These 2 cultivators were none other than Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an. "What are you staying behind for?" Ningyu asked in surprise when he saw Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an staying behind. Something like the lightning tribulation could only be transcended by oneself. It was not advisable to ask for help from others. Otherwise, the power of the lightning tribulation would multiply. In other words, if Ningyu was going to transcend the tribulation, and Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an were inside, the power of the tribulation would increase by at least 4 times. We don't want to stay either. Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an were on the verge of tears. It wasn't that they wanted to stay, but they couldn't leave even if they wanted to. The two of them could sense that their tribulation of the human immortal realm was coming too. They would never have believed it if it was in the past. After all, they didn't do anything. Why would the tribulation befall them? If a peak sacred realm cultivator wanted to trigger the tribulation, they would need to devour a huge amount of energy and prepare a lot of things. Now that they had triggered the tribulation for no reason, how could they not be surprised? Damn it, you guys are hiding behind me. Ning Yu cursed in his heart when he saw the tribulation clouds above Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an. He shielded them behind him and said in a deep voice, "I'll block the lightning tribulation for you." Ning Yu was well aware of that. With Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong's strength, it would be more difficult for them to block the tribulation clouds, let alone transcending the tribulation completely. Chapter 1935. Just as Ningyu was thinking about how to resist the terrifying thunder tribulation above his head, the void not far away from him suddenly trembled, and then two martial artists quietly appeared. If Ningyu was here, he would definitely find that although these two martial artists were young, their auras were extremely powerful. Late-stage Earth level immortal. The cultivation of these two martial artists had undoubtedly reached the terrifying late-stage Earth level immortal. One of the martial artists' cultivation was already at the peak of the late-stage Earth level immortal, only one step away from the real peak of the Earth level immortal. Luo Shueha, I heard that your human immortal tribulation is extremely fierce and can kill Earth level immortals. One of the young men in light blue clothes first looked at Ningyu, then at the man next to him, and asked, "I wonder how much weaker this person's human immortal tribulation is compared to yours." Humph. The young man called Luo Shueha snorted and immediately looked straight at Ningyu. After staring at Ningyu for a while, Luo Shueha said coldly, "Xiaoxian, don't be sarcastic. I know that when you were undergoing your human immortal tribulation, you were almost blasted in half by the terrifying tribulation cloud. Haha, human immortal is the real threshold to step into the world of cultivation. The strength of the human immortal tribulation basically determines a person's future achievements." Xiao Xian was obviously not angry with Luo Shueha's attitude. On the contrary, Xiao Xian smiled and said, "According to my observation, if this martial artist can safely pass through the human immortal tribulation, he can at least become a sky immortal in the future." Whoosh! Hearing Xiao Xian's words, even though Luo Shueha really wanted to mock him, he could not help but change his expression. The territory they were in was a powerful territory in a high-level plane. Although there was a certain gap between them and the central divine dynasty, it was many times stronger than the territory where the five-fingered immortal was. Mid-stage sky immortals were not rare in the territories they came from. What surprised Luo Shueha was that Xiao Xian actually said that this martial artist in front of him had a chance to become a sky immortal. One had to know that celestial immortals were experts who could dominate a territory. Even though their territories were filled with celestial immortals, every time an expert from a sect broke through to the celestial immortal realm, they would hold a banquet and invite the experts from the surrounding territories to celebrate. This kind of banquet could even be held for a year, because becoming a celestial immortal was very difficult. In order to attain the heavenly immortal realm, strength alone wasn't enough. It also required great fortuitous encounters, great willpower, and great methods. Are you so sure that he has the talent to become a heavenly immortal? Luo Shueha suppressed the shock in his heart and asked with a frown. Even the top 10 geniuses of the longevity role don't have a chance to become a sky immortal. Only the top 3 longevity role have a chance to become a sky immortal. Xiao Xian rolled his eyes at Luo Shueha and said, "I think you misunderstood me. I mean, if he can pass this worldly immortal tribulation, he will have a chance to become a sky immortal in the future. If he can't even pass this worldly immortal tribulation, then what's the point of talking about becoming a sky immortal? His worldly immortal tribulation isn't too strong. It's a level weaker than mine. Luo Shueha, still, didn't quite believe Xiao Xian's evaluation of Ningyu, because his worldly immortal tribulation back then was at least several times stronger than Ningyu's worldly immortal tribulation. Although Ningyu's worldly immortal tribulation was powerful and could easily kill a mid-stage mortal deity, it was destined to be on a different level from his worldly immortal tribulation, which could easily kill an earth-level deity. Look again. Xiao Xian smiled and pointed at Ningyu with his right hand. Let's look. His worldly immortal tribulation can. Luo Shueha rolled his eyes and then looked at Ningyu again. SDTH. This glance caused Luo Shueha to suck in a breath of cold air. Luo Shueha was shocked, not because Ningyu's worldly immortal tribulation was powerful, but because he realized that there were tribulation clouds above the heads of the two martial artists behind Ningyu. Generally speaking, there shouldn't be anyone else in the tribulation. With every additional person, the power of the tribulation clouds would double. There were two more people behind Ningyu, and they were going through the tribulation at the same time. The power of the tribulation clouds would at least increase by several times. Of course, since ancient times, some peerless geniuses would take the initiative to invite others into the tribulation clouds when they were going through the tribulation. After all, the stronger the tribulation clouds, the more powerful the baptism would be. Therefore, all peerless geniuses would invite others into their tribulation clouds when they were going through the tribulation. Even he had invited an expert to follow him when he was going through the worldly immortal tribulation. However, Ningyu was even more perverted than he was in the past. He had only invited an expert to go through the tribulation with him, but Ningyu had invited two people who were going to go through the worldly immortal tribulation at the same time. The more he thought about it, the more terrified Luo Shueha felt. In the end, Luo Shueha even took a deep breath and stared at Ningyu. He murmured, "If he can successfully overcome the tribulation, I'm afraid his combat strength will be comparable to ours." Rumble. Ningyu had no time to care about Luo Shueha's shock. He protected Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an behind him. The vital qi in his body surged out and formed a vital qi barrier around them. Normally, the first few tribulation clouds of the human immortal tribulation were not particularly powerful. With the vital qi barrier, one could easily resist them. Ningyu's idea was to use the vital qi barrier to resist the first few tribulation clouds. He would take advantage of this time to use the art of crossing the sea to deceive the heavens. Although it was said to deceive the heavens, it was actually to let Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an enter the storage ring. He would use the art of boundless embodiment to create two people. As for the problem of aura, Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an would each force out a drop or several drops of blood essence to temporarily disguise themselves. Crack! As soon as Ningyu activated the vital qi barrier, a waist-thick tribulation cloud came crashing down. The tribulation cloud's speed was very fast. Almost in an instant, it collided with the Yuan qi barrier. A crisp sound was heard. Hearing the sound, Ningyu's face turned extremely gloomy. He originally thought he could use the vital qi barrier to resist a few tribulation clouds. However, his vital qi barrier unexpectedly cracked after being hit by the first tribulation cloud. According to this situation, not to mention withstanding a few tribulation clouds, it was unknown whether he could even withstand 3 tribulation clouds. I can't use the art of boundless embodiment anymore. Ningyu's face was ashen. The soul power in his body surged out and wrapped around his fist. In the next moment, Ningyu's feet suddenly stomped on the ground. His body rose from the ground and charged straight at the second tribulation cloud. Chi. The soul power on his fist surged and rubbed against the air, emitting a hissing sound. Ningyu's goal was very clear. He directly charged into the tribulation cloud and fought with it. Chapter 1936. What is he doing? Seeing Ningyu's actions, Luo Shueha was puzzled. When others went through the great tribulation of the human immortal realm, they would usually endure it silently and let the tribulation cloud strike. But Ningyu seemed to want to fight against the tribulation clouds. He's going to face the thunder tribulation. Xiao Xian said with a solemn expression. Why does he want to face the thunder tribulation? Does he think he's very strong? Luo Shueha was puzzled. No matter how powerful a peerless genius was, he had never heard of anyone who dared to face the thunder tribulation directly, because there was no advantage in facing the thunder tribulation directly. Even if he didn't face the thunder tribulation directly, the baptism after successfully passing the tribulation wouldn't be weak. Ningyu's actions were completely unrewarding. No wonder Luo Shueha was puzzled. Xiao Xian's thoughts were obviously a little different from Luo Shueha's. Or rather, Xiao Xian had a more thorough and profound view. If they allowed the lightning tribulation to strike them one by one, it would be much easier. However, the two peak sages below would suffer a calamity. Obviously, the two peak stage sage cultivators couldn't withstand the terrifying thunder tribulation. I'm more and more interested in him now. After guessing Ningyu's true thoughts, Xiao Xian crossed his arms in front of his chest and smiled. If he can pass the great tribulation of the human immortal realm, I've decided to rope him in and give him a Xiao family token. Xiao family token? Hearing Xiao Xian's words, Luo Shueha was finally moved. The Xiao family was a big family in their territory, and there was more than one sky immortal in the family. Rumor had it that only half-step sky immortals or peak stage royal alchemists had a chance to obtain the Xiao family token. How could Luo Shueha not be shocked when Xiao Xian said that he wanted to give the cultivator in front of him one? However, while he was shocked, Luo Shueha shifted his gaze to the other side and reminded, I have no objections if you want to give him the Xiao clan's command plate. However, you have to think carefully. This brat has offended more than one person. Buzz. On the other side, there was a buzzing sound in the air. There were a total of 4 cultivators in the air. In terms of cultivation level, these 4 cultivators were no weaker than Luo Shueha and Xiao Xian. Late Earth Immortal Stage. All 4 of them were at the Late Earth Immortal Realm. The hook-nosed old man and the bald man. If Human Demon were here, he would have discovered that these 4 martial artists were the 4 martial artists who had chased after him in Four Corner City. When they were in Four Corner City, the 5-finger elixir furnace sucked them in at the last moment, causing the hook-nosed old man to lose his footing. Unfortunately, there was a mark left behind by a heaven immortal from a high-level plane on human fiend's body. After a period of searching, the hook-nosed old man and the others finally found traces of human fiend. After finding traces of the human demon, the aquiline-nosed old man had wanted to attack the human demon immediately. However, Ningyu's tribulation clouds descended. The hook-nosed old man did not have the guts to rashly barge into someone else's tribulation cloud. Therefore, he decided to wait patiently until Ningyu's tribulation clouds ended. Then, he would think of a way to deal with the human devil. However, he did not stay idle. Instead, he used a special secret skill to trigger the tribulation of Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an. I think that Ningyu will definitely be blasted to smithereens by the tribulation clouds. The bald man shrugged as he watched Ningyu rush into the tribulation clouds. The human demon is in Ningyu's storage ring, so I'm sure he'll be blasted to smithereens as well. We probably won't even need to do anything. In my opinion, we should leave one person here to watch. The rest of us should rush to Thousand Demons Ridge first. I heard that Thousand Demons Ridge is about to be breached. At that time, large amounts of origin energy will be ejected. We can't miss this great opportunity." Hearing the bald man's words, the other two Earth Immortal Realm martial artists nodded in agreement. Although their main mission in the Immortal Spirit region this time was to kill Human Demon, coincidentally, the plane barrier was loosening and the origin energy in Thousand Demons Ridge was bursting out. They definitely wanted a share of the loot. After all, origin energy was very precious. If they could obtain some origin energy, they might even have a chance to improve further. It was not impossible for them to have a chance to touch the threshold of Heaven Immortal in the future. "How about this, you stay?" The hook-nosed old man's face was gloomy. He stared at the bald man and said, "When the time comes, all the credit for killing Human Demon will go to you." The bald man's face was a little ugly. He did not want to stay. Although Ning Yu would definitely fail the tribulation, Human Demon was a Heaven Immortal in the past. Who knew if he had a trump card to survive? If Human Demon came back to life and he stayed, it was very likely that Human Demon would use a secret technique to kill him. "Shut up if you don't want to stay," the hook-nosed old man said coldly. "The four of us will guard the surroundings. As soon as Ning Yu's tribulation clouds end, we will immediately attack." Yes, the bald man and the others were shocked. Among the four of them, the hook-nosed old man was the strongest. It was really unwise to contradict the hook-nosed old man. Uft. At the same time, in midair, Ning Yu had already rushed into the tribulation clouds. His hands carried a terrifying soul power fluctuation as he repeatedly bombarded the tribulation clouds. At first, Ning Yu could still contend with the tribulation clouds, but as time passed, Ning Yu gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. This was because the tribulation clouds were increasing in number, and in the end, it had reached a horrifying level. Damn it! Ning Yu forcefully dispersed a tribulation cloud and couldn't help but curse. At first, the tribulation cloud's power could kill an intermediate human immortal. However, with the passage of time, the power of the ordinary tribulation clouds had already reached the point where they could easily blast a peak human immortal. In other words, Ning Yu was not fighting against the tribulation cloud, but against countless human immortal peak martial artists. Ning Yu still understood the principle of ants biting an elephant to death. A peak human immortal might not be his match, but what about 2? What about 3? What about 10? Facing so many tribulation clouds, which were equivalent to the peak of human immortal, even though Ning Yu's strength was comparable to an intermediate earthly immortal expert, he faintly felt a little powerless at this moment. "I have to think of a way." Ning Yu looked at the tribulation clouds rushing over, gritted his teeth, and immediately took out the 5-finger divine pill. The 5-finger divine pill was divided into 6 portions by Ning Yu. Ning Lu, Human Demon, Hong Mo, Dark Emperor, Zhao Hang, the 5 of them each had 1 portion. The last portion was kept by Ning Yu for himself. Ning Yu originally wanted to consume the 5-finger divine pill after passing the tribulation, but the current situation did not allow him to think too much. If he did not consume the 5-finger divine pill, he would probably be blasted to pieces by another dozen tribulation clouds. "Devour!" Ning Yu flicked his wrist and swallowed the 5-finger divine pill. Boom! Chapter 1937. Rumble. Terrifying essence Qi burst out of Ning Yu's body and shot up into the sky. Ning Yu was in the middle of the tribulation clouds, so the essence Qi burst out of his body and blew away the tribulation clouds around him. Originally, Ning Yu's strength was several times more difficult to deal with the surrounding tribulation clouds than it was to reach the sky. However, after swallowing the pentacle divine pill, Ning Yu's strength was enough to go against the tribulation clouds. Crack! 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 Ning Yu clenched his right hand into a fist and dashed left and right in the tribulation clouds. A series of crisp sounds were heard, indicating that the tribulation clouds around Ning Yu had been blown away. Sage Great Elixir! Luo Shueha and Xiao Xian, who were not far away, were extremely shocked. Although they did not know that the elixir in Ning Yu's hands was called the Pentacle Divine Pill, they were still very sensitive to the terrifying aura that the elixir emitted. After all, the difference between a Sage Great Elixir and a Royal Great Elixir was so huge that Luo Shueha and Xiao Xian could tell the difference at a glance. How could he have a Sage Great Elixir? Luo Shueha stared at Ning Yu and asked in confusion. He could not understand why a mid-stage human, celestial like Ning Yu, would have a Sage Great Elixir. The appearance of a Sage Great Elixir was enough to cause peak Earth celestials or even sky celestials to kill each other. To be honest, this was the first time Luo Shueha had seen a mid-stage human celestial who had a Sage Great Elixir and swallowed it. Why does this elixir have the aura of the five-fingered celestial? Xiao Xian and Luo Shueha were focused on different things. Although he had already admitted that Ning Yu was extremely talented, he was still shocked that Ning Yu had a Sage Great Elixir. However, in his opinion, the reason why Ning Yu had a Sage Great Elixir was most likely related to the five-fingered celestial, because he sensed a trace of the Five Fingers Immortal's aura from the Saint Rank medicinal pill. Even though there was a great disparity in strength between the Five-Fingered Immortal's territory and his own territory, the Five-Fingered Immortal was a Saint-grade alchemist. Any Saint-grade alchemist status was not inferior to that of an ordinary heavenly immortal. Before coming to the celestial spirit realm, Xiao Xian had done some research on the celestial spirit realm. The Five-Fingered Immortal was the first person he learned about. How could he not be shocked when he sensed a trace of the Five-Fingered Immortal's aura from the Saint-tier elixir in Ning Yu's hand? Should we make a move? Xiao Xian and Luo Shueha could tell that Ning Yu had taken out a Saint-tier medicinal pill, so naturally the hawk-nosed old man and the bald man could tell as well. Seeing that Ning Yu had used the Saint Great Elixir to easily disperse the tribulation clouds, the bald man immediately said, "Let's seize the opportunity while Ning Yu hasn't completely refined the Saint Great Elixir yet." Fool! The hawk-nosed old man was so angry that his nose was crooked. Ning Yu was in the midst of the human immortal tribulation. What was the difference between barging in now and courting death? Glaring at the bald man, the hawk-nosed old man said coldly, "From now on, you are not allowed to say a word without my permission. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." "Aye." The bald man opened his mouth slightly and wanted to refute, but when he saw the hawk-nosed old man's cold gaze, he chose to shut his mouth on the spot. The bald man was very self-aware. No matter how he looked at it, the hawk-nosed old man was much stronger than him. Under the threat of the hawk-nosed old man, it was better for him to stay where he was. Rumble. In mid-air, Ning Yu had used the Five-Fingered Divine Elixir to disperse several tribulation clouds. Before he could even catch his breath, the void exploded and several more terrifying tribulation clouds appeared above his head. Sensing the terrifying energy contained in these tribulation clouds, even Ning Yu, who had swallowed the Five-Fingered Divine Elixir, could not help but gasp at this moment. Early Earth Immortal Stage. If the tribulation clouds previously had destructive power equivalent to a peak human immortal stage martial artist, then these tribulation clouds now had destructive power equivalent to an early Earth immortal stage martial artist. Facing tribulation clouds equivalent to a peak human immortal stage martial artist, Ning Yu had swallowed the Five-Fingered Divine Elixir to deal with them. Now that he was facing tribulation clouds equivalent to an early Earth immortal stage martial artist, Ning Yu's face turned extremely ugly. "I have to refine all the Five-Fingered Divine Elixir in my body as soon as possible." With a thought, Ning Yu hurriedly used the spiritual transformation technique to refine the remaining Five-Fingered Divine Elixir in his body. The five-fingered divine elixir was a sage-grade elixir. No matter how fast Ningyu's devouring speed was, it was impossible for him to completely devour it in such a short period of time. In other words, there was still a large amount of the five-fingered divine elixir left in Ningyu's body. Qi. As the spiritual transformation technique was used, the five-fingered divine elixir in Ningyu's body was being refined at a terrifying speed. Boom! Just as Ningyu started to refine the remaining five-fingered divine elixir in his body, a tribulation cloud as thick as a person's waist suddenly came crashing down from midair. Feeling helpless, Ningyu could only speed up the process of refining the five-fingered divine elixir while wielding the red demon's sword to fight against the tribulation cloud. Kacha! 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 Ningyu's current overall strength was equivalent to an intermediate Earth immortal stage martial artist. Even without the enhancement of the five-fingered divine elixir, he could still easily defeat an early Earth immortal stage martial artist. The tribulation clouds around Ningyu were mostly around the early Earth immortal stage. Naturally, they would not be able to hurt Ningyu in a short period of time. Not only were the tribulation clouds unable to hurt Ningyu, but Ningyu used the red demon sword to slash apart several tribulation clouds. Drip, drip. Time was ticking away. From the moment the second tribulation cloud descended to the moment it completely disappeared, a total of 2 hours had passed. In these 2 hours, Ningyu did not die under the bombardment of the tribulation clouds. Instead, he successfully killed several tribulation clouds. Phew! After repelling the second tribulation cloud, Ningyu could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. That was close. The second tribulation cloud was huge in number and terrifying in power. In order to resist this tribulation cloud, Ningyu did not hesitate to squeeze out all the medicinal energy from the five-fingered divine elixir. However, just as Ningyu was about to relax, his body trembled as he stared at the void above his head. Rumble! A crisp rumbling sound was heard. Then 9 tribulation clouds as thick as a person's waist descended from the 9 heavens. What the F***CK? When he sensed the terrifying destructive force contained within every single tribulation cloud, even if Ningyu was mentally prepared in advance, he still couldn't help but gasp and curse loudly at this moment. Intermediate Earth, immortal stage. The destructive power of each tribulation cloud was equivalent to a fully armed intermediate Earth immortal stage martial artist. Ningyu might not have such an expression if he were to face one of the tribulation clouds alone. But how could Ningyu not be surprised to face 9 of them at once? Block them. Ningyu was not the kind of person who would retreat. He stomped his feet on the ground again and flew straight towards the 9 terrifying tribulation clouds. Ningyu was very clear that even if he consumed all the medicinal energy in the five-fingered divine elixir, it would still be difficult to face 9 intermediate Earth immortal stage martial artists at the same time. Chapter 1938. Bang, bang, bang. It turned out that no matter how strong Ningyu's soul power was, he couldn't withstand the impact of 9 tribulation clouds at the same time. Even though Ningyu tried his best and burned his soul power and essence qi to withstand the tribulation clouds, he could only withstand 6 of them. The remaining 3 tribulation clouds broke through his defense and bombarded Ningyu's body. Uft! Ningyu spat out a mouthful of dark red blood on the spot after being hit by the 3 terrifying tribulation clouds, and his whole body was blasted away. Swish! Swish! When Ningyu was sent flying, the remaining 6 tribulation clouds broke through his soul power and essence qi defense and attacked him rapidly. In an instant, 6 tribulation clouds bombarded his body. Uft! 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 Ningyu opened his mouth and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. After being hit by 9 tribulation clouds that were equivalent to a mid-stage Earth immortal expert, Ningyu's aura dropped to the freezing point. He stood on the spot and was on the verge of collapsing. Boom! After the 9 tribulation clouds ended, the void seemed to have returned to peace. It's over. From afar, seeing that the tribulation clouds above Ningyu's head had disappeared and returned to peace, the aquiline-nosed old man frowned slightly and seemed to be a little uncertain. Although Ningyu's great tribulation of human immortal had triggered 9 tribulation clouds that were equivalent to a mid-stage Earth immortal expert, the aquiline-nosed old man still felt that something was wrong. Go and capture Ningyu alive. There must be some sacred-grade elixir pills left in his body. The bald man widened his eyes and clenched his fists tightly, wanting to rush forward. How much energy was contained in a sacred-grade elixir pill? In the bald man's opinion, it was impossible for Ningyu to refine all the sacred-grade elixir pills. As long as he could capture Ningyu alive and refine Ningyu on the spot, he would be able to obtain the remaining sacred-grade elixir pills in Ningyu's body. You two go and test out. This time, the hook-nosed old man didn't reprimand the bald man. Instead, he frowned slightly and shifted his gaze to the other 2 late Earth immortal experts. Let's see if we can capture Ningyu alive. Understood. The other 2 late Earth immortal experts nodded, and then they dashed out in unison towards Ningyu. The hawk-nosed old man's thoughts were actually biased towards Ningyu's human immortal tribulation. Otherwise, how could he have allowed his 2 companions to risk their lives? Someone's there. Ningyu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Just as he was about to do his best to recover and prepare to resist the next round of tribulation clouds, he was surprised to find 2 cultivators rushing towards him. When Ningyu sensed 2 reckless cultivators charging at him, his pupils constricted. He had the urge to curse. It doesn't matter if you want to die, but don't drag me along. Others might not know, but as the person involved, Ningyu knew it very well. His human immortal tribulation hadn't ended yet. It was most appropriate to say that it had just begun. Get out of here if you don't want to die. Ningyu stared at the 2 late Earth immortal experts and shouted, My human immortal tribulation hasn't ended yet. If you come in without permission, you'll definitely be smashed into pieces by the tribulation clouds. Are you dreaming? Ningyu's rebuke didn't stop the 2 late Earth immortal experts. They just paused in midair for a while and sneered at Ningyu. Do you think you're the reincarnation of a Xian immortal from the 9 heavens? It's just a human immortal tribulation. But you make it sound like a celestial immortal tribulation. Oh no. However, these 2 advanced stage, earthly immortal realm experts hadn't even finished speaking when their expressions turned grim. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 terrifying tribulation clouds descended from the 9 heavens and blasted towards them. Damn it! Why hasn't his human immortal tribulation ended yet? Looking at the huge tribulation clouds that were rushing towards them, the 2 late Earth immortal experts couldn't help but curse. They could feel that the tribulation clouds that were coming towards them were very powerful. They were equivalent to a full-force attack from a peak late Earth immortal expert. Although they were both late Earth immortal experts, they still had a lingering fear in the face of such terrifying tribulation clouds. Whoosh! 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 However, what shocked them even more was yet to come. 2 tribulation clouds that were equivalent to a full-force attack from a peak late Earth immortal expert wasn't the end, but the starting point. Then, for more terrifying tribulation, clouds descended. The power of each tribulation cloud was no less than a full-force attack from a peak late Earth immortal expert. Crack! There was even an explosion in the void, and a tribulation cloud that was several feet thick gradually appeared in the sky. Ah! Miserable shrieks came out from the mouths of the 2 late Earth immortal experts. Facing 6 terrifying tribulation clouds, The two late Earth immortal experts didn't last long before they were drowned in the tribulation clouds. Exceptional Earth immortal expert. Ning Yu's attention wasn't on the two late Earth immortal experts. What he was concerned about was the tribulation cloud that appeared in the void. This tribulation cloud should be the last tribulation cloud of the human immortal tribulation. As long as he could successfully resist the impact of this tribulation cloud, his human immortal tribulation would be completely over. How could there be a tribulation cloud of the exceptional Earth immortal expert? Luo Shueha and Xiao Xian, who were in the distance, opened their mouths slightly, and their faces were full of surprise. When they were undergoing their human immortal tribulation, the most powerful tribulation cloud was only a mid-stage Earth immortal expert's tribulation cloud. It was the first time they had seen a tribulation cloud of the exceptional Earth immortal expert, like Ning Yu did. It must be the last two martial artists who rushed in rashly, causing the power of the human immortal tribulation to increase several times. Xiao Xian said in a deep voice as he could see more clearly. Under normal circumstances, the power of the last tribulation cloud of Ning Yu's human immortal tribulation should be around the late-stage Earth immortal level. But now, the two martial artists rushed in rashly, causing the power of the human immortal tribulation to increase several times. He's probably done for. Luo Shueha shook his head slowly. He didn't think that Ning Yu could withstand the last tribulation cloud. Sigh. Apart from Luo Shueha, even Xiao Xian, who was extremely optimistic about Ning Yu, sighed and expressed his agreement. If Ning Yu was able to withstand the tribulation cloud of the perfection stage earthly immortal realm, then wouldn't it mean that if he was able to successfully overcome the tribulation of the human immortal realm, then advancing to the heavenly immortal realm in the future would be a sure thing? Let's go all out. Looking up at the huge tribulation cloud that had formed, Ning Yu took a deep breath as if he had made a big decision. Against such a terrifying tribulation cloud, Ning Yu knew that it was almost impossible for him to withstand it with the strength of his essence qi and soul force. Under such circumstances, he only had one way. That was to use the boundless embodiment technique to create a fake of himself and let the fake him resist the tribulation cloud. This was very risky. If he failed, he would fall into a state of eternal damnation and be directly smashed into pieces by the tribulation cloud. But if he succeeded, the benefits he would gain would be huge. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.